To one that feels. The teaching of Luangpor Teean. Translated and edited by Tavivat Puntarik Vivat and Bhikkhu Nirodho. It is to one that feels that I teach Dhamma, not to one that does not feel. The Awakened One. Foreword. Luangpor Teean, CE 1911 to 1988, was one of the most remarkable teachers of Buddhist practice to appear in Asia in modern times. His teaching issued very directly from his own experience, intensely personal and original, and in translating the talks collected here from Thai into English we have attempted to achieve the highest fidelity to the original, preserving the talk's style, rhythms, verve, and profundity, together with their occasional peculiarities of expression. Our overriding concern to present as far as possible an exact English equivalent of Luangpor Teean's Thai talks has resulted in a text liberally sprinkled with technical terms. With the exceptions of the Thai words rup, nam, and pra, all the technical terms are given in their Pali forms. And each is translated, in parenthesis, at least once in every chapter, except the final chapter. A glossary of Pali terms has been provided to further facilitate the work of understanding. For their help in the production of this book we would like to thank the following: Richard Baksat, who typed the first draft of this revised edition of To One That Feels onto computer disk, Nancy Steckel, who designed the cover, Olarn Pinkaua, who provided the rope illustrations, the Buddhist Association of the United States and Kansak Tanfaya Chitra MD, in affiliation with Prasunthorn Playment, president of the Buddha Dharma Meditation Center, who contributed the funds for printing this book, and Ed Stauffer, of Comzet Limited Bangkok, whose generosity in donating time, materials, and his typesetting and design skills has been invaluable. Bhikkhu Nirodho, Thailand. Tavivat Puntarik Vivat, Bristol, Pennsylvania. July BE 2536, 1993. Original Preface. This book is not concerned with words, but with the practice at yourself. The fruit that is received, you receive it at yourself. This method is therefore the most direct and easiest. It is to watch the mind at the moment it thinks, to know the deception in the actual moment, and to resolve it there. It isn't that knowing the thought we evaluate it, because doing so is delusion, anger and greed as well. When we can cut here, there is Sati Samadhi Punya complete at this moment. Practitioners who tried the practice, both Thai and non-Thai, especially Singaporeans, have given donations towards the printing of this book, which is being published for those who have never tried the practice. The practice described in this book is of such value to be priceless, just as the life of humans has no price and cannot be bought or sold. Luangpor Teean. February 1 BE 2527, 1984. It rains hard on a covered thing. It rains hard on a covered thing. It rains not hard on an open thing. Today we shall talk about how to end dukkha, suffering, according to Buddhism. The Buddha taught that each of us could come to the very important point of the cessation of dukkha. So I shall talk about a simple and direct method of practice according to my own experience. I can assure you that this method can really release you from dukkha. When we talk about a method to end dukkha, the words are one thing and the practice is quite another. The method of practice is a method of developing sati, awareness, in all positions, standing, walking, sitting and lying. This practice has frequently been called satipatthana, the grounds of awareness, but whatever you call it, the point is to be aware of yourself. If you are aware of yourself, then moha, delusion, will disappear. You should develop awareness of yourself by being aware of all your bodily movements, such as turning your hands, raising and lowering your forearms, walking forward and back, turning and nodding your head, blinking your eyes, opening your mouth, inhaling, exhaling, swallowing saliva, and so on. You must be aware of all of these movements, and this awareness is called sati. When you have awareness of yourself, the unawareness, which is called moha, or delusion, will disappear. To be aware of the movements of the body is to develop sati. You should try to develop this awareness in every movement. When you are fully aware of yourself, there arises a certain kind of panya, knowing, in the mind that knows reality as it is. To see yourself as you are, to see Dhamma, actuality, the way things are, the truth of nature, of existence. To see Dhamma isn't to see deities, hell, or heaven, but to see oneself turning the hands, raising and lowering the forearms, walking forwards and back, turning and nodding the head, blinking the eyes, opening the mouth, inhaling, exhaling, swallowing saliva, and so on. This Rup Nam. Rup is body, Nam is mind. Body and mind are dependent upon each other. What we can see is Rup, and the mind that thinks is Nam. When we know Rup Nam, we know reality as it is. When you see with the eyes, you should be aware of it. When you see with the mind, you should also be aware of it. Dhamma is yourself, everyone is Dhamma, whether male or female, Thai, Chinese, or Westerner, each is Dhamma. The practice is with us, and the teaching of the Buddha can really lead us to the extinguishing of dukkha. Individuals are Dhamma, Dhamma is the individual. When we know Dhamma, we will understand that everything is not as we think it is. Everything is samyuti, supposition. This is the panya that arises so that the real teaching of the Buddha can be realized. Whether the Buddha existed or not, Dhamma is there. When you really see this, you will be beyond your superstitions. Once you that Dhamma is yourself, it is you that lead your own life, not anything else. This is the beginning of the end of dukkha. Next, we try to develop sati in all our movements in daily life. For example, when we make a fist or open it, we are aware of it. And when we are aware of all our movements, then not knowing, or moha, disappears by itself. When there is awareness of ourself, there is no delusion. It is like pouring water into a glass. As we pour the water in, it displaces the air, and when we have filled the glass with water, all the air has gone. If we then pour the water out, air instantly goes back into the glass. Just so when there is moha, sati and panya cannot enter. But when we practice the developing of sati, doing awareness of ourselves, this awareness displaces moha. When there is sati, moha cannot arise. Actually, there is no dosa, moha, lopa, anger, delusion, greed. Why not? As you are listening to me talking, how is your mind? Your listening mind is natural, and free from dosa, moha, lopa. Now we come to know sasana, religion, Buddha sasana, Buddhism, papa, sin, and punya, merit. Papa is stupidity, punya is cleverness or knowingness. When you know, you can relinquish. Sasana is the individual, and Buddha sasana is the sati punya, awareness knowing, that enters and knows the mind. The word Buddha means one that knows. In developing sati in all our movements, we develop total awareness in the whole body. When thought arises, we see it, know it, and understand it. But in the case of common people, they are part of that thought, so they cannot see the thought. Suppose that we are in a mosquito net, which is inside a room of a house. We must first come out of the room and the house to see that we were also inside them. Thought is the same. We cannot see it if we are part of it. We must come out of it in order to see it clearly. When we see it, thought stops. It is just like bringing a cat into our house to get rid of the rats that are disturbing us. Cats and rats are enemies by nature. At first the cat may be very small and very weak, while the rats are large and full of energy. So if the cat pounces on a rat, it is dragged along as the rat runs away, and, after holding on for a while, it must let go. We cannot blame the cat, but we must feed it. We feed the cat often, and soon it is very energetic and very strong. Then, when the rats come, the cat can get them. When the rats are caught, they die of shock at once, before the cat eats them. Thought is the same. If we develop sati, then when thought arises we become aware of it, and it stops. The thought does not continue, because we are aware of it. It disappears because we have sati, samadhi, setting up the mind, steadiness of mind, and panya all together at that moment. Sati, or awareness, means to be alert like a cat watching for rats. When thought arises we do not have to be a part of it. It will arise and disappear by itself. When there is sati, there is no moha. When there is no moha there is no dosa, moha, lopa. This is called nam-rup, nam thinks, and we know the deception, we know it in time, we know the protection, we know the cure, just this is sati. Sila, keeping moral precepts, is normality. Sila is the result of a normal mind. This is the same as sati, samadhi, panya. The method to develop the total awareness that can end dukkha, as I understand it, and as I believe the Buddha taught, is to practice in our daily life. So we need not sit cross-legged with eyes closed. If we sit like that we cannot work. If a thief comes, he will succeed in robbing us, so we should open our eyes, and then we can work at any kind of work, and all the time we can practice the developing of sati. Whether we are students, teachers, parents, sons, daughters, policemen, soldiers, or government officials, all of us can fulfill our responsibilities while practicing developing sati. Everybody can do their duty practicing developing sati. How? Since we do not sit with eyes closed, we can go on with our duties and see our mind at the same time. The mind has no real self. As soon as it thinks, we see it, we know it, we understand it. To develop sati is to shake the knowing element of a person. Everybody has the reality in their own mind, but if we cannot see it we do not understand it, but it is still there. Now if we look we see it. When we see like this, it is called seeing Dhamma. Seeing this kind of Dhamma can get rid of dosa, moha, lopa. Magga, the noble path, is the way of practice leading to the cessation of dukkha. The way of practice is to be aware of thought. Our body works according to our duties and responsibilities, but our mind must see thought. Dukkha arises and, because we do not see it, it conquers and enslaves us, it sits on our head and slaps our face, but if we can see it, know it, and understand it, then it cannot defeat us. Dukkha is like a leech that attaches itself to us and sucks our blood. If we try to pull it off it is stubborn, it resists, and we hurt ourselves more. But if we are clever we simply use water mixed with tobacco leaf and lime, and squeeze the water onto the leech. The leech is afraid, and drops off by itself. So we don't have to tear it out, or to force it, in order to get rid of it. This is the same. Those who don't know try to stop dosa, moha, lopa, they try to fight and suppress it, but one that knows just has sati to watch the mind and see thought. It is like turning on an electric lamp. A person who does not know about electricity will try at the bulb instead of the switch, so the lamp does not light. But someone that knows about electricity knows how to use the switch, and the lamp lights up. Dosa, moha, lopa is like an electric lamp, the thought is like the switch. The thought is the cause of this derangement. If we want to eliminate the derangement, we come to the thought. When we have sati watching thought, dosa, moha, lopa cannot arise. Actually, there is no moha, no lopa and no dosa. We touch the switch here in order to have light there. We develop sati here in order to end all dukkha. Dukkha arises from moha. When we have sati there is no moha and so no dukkha. When we move our hands we feel, and the awareness of this feeling is sati, and when we have sati we are separate from thought and can see thought. You should not pay so much attention to the movement, but use sati to watch conceptual thought. Just passively see the thought, do not stare at it. When thought arises, let it pass away. Actually there is no moha. Moha arises when we are not aware. It is like when we build a new house, there are no rats, but when we fill the house with things the rats come. Sometimes, when people criticize or blame us, we feel disappointment. In this practice, awareness of the disappointment will arise at the same time, like the cat catching a rat. When we can maintain our mind in this way, dosa, moha, lopa cannot arise. When thought, suffering, or confusion arise, do not try to stop it, but observe it, and we will understand its nature. As soon as thought arises, sweep it away immediately and come to be with the awareness. Thoughts, suffering, confused mind, they will go by themselves. Any time that thought arises we know it, even while sleeping. When we move our body while sleeping we also know it. This is because our awareness is complete. When we see thought all the time, no matter what it thinks, we conquer it every time. Those that can see thought are near the current to nibbana, extinction of dukkha. Then we will come to a point where something inside will arise suddenly. If the thought is quick, panya will also be quick. If the thought or emotion is very deep, panya will also be deep. And if these two things are equally deep and collide, then there is the sudden breaking out of a state that is latent in everybody. With this occurrence the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind are detached from sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and mental objects. It is like uncoupling the drive mechanism of car. When the parts become independent of each other, the car, although it still exists, can no longer be driven. When this state occurs we do not die. We can still work according to our duties. We can eat, drink and sleep. But now, by the law of nature everything is void, and this is the unchangeable law. Suppose there is a rope drawn tightly between two posts, and we cut it in the middle, so that the rope falls apart. If we want to tie it together again, we cannot. If we untie it from a post to tie it in the middle, then we cannot tie it to the post again. This is like the six senses of one that realizes their original nature. When their eyes make contact with an object there is no attachment, just as a screw that is stripped, without threads, cannot become attached. All of the Buddha's teaching aims to put an end to dukkha. If we do not understand this we will be in doubt about his teaching, and speculation about rebirth, heaven, hell, and so on, speculation that should be ignored, will plague our mind. The teaching of Buddha is timeless, and is not limited by language, race, nationality, or religion. According to the Satipatthana Sutta, if you practice Satipatthana continuously, like a chain, that is, to develop sati at all moments, then arahata, extinction of dukkha, or the attainment of the anagami, non-returner, can be expected within 7 years. Or in as short a time as 7 months or even 7 days. If you develop sati according to the method I have explained, and have sati continuously like a chain, then in at most 3 years dukkha will be diminished by 60%, and in some cases completely eliminated. Some may achieve this in as little as 1 year or even 90 days. There is no gladness or sorrow, contentment or discontent. This way to the cessation of dukkha is an easy way. It is difficult because we do not really know. Therefore we have doubt and lack of confidence. When we are confident in every step of practice, it is not so difficult. You can practice it anywhere, but you should really know the practice. If you can assure yourself, then you have a refuge in yourself. Religion means this refuge. If you study books for many years, it will still be theory. But if you really practice, it will not take you so long, and you will know it much better than the theorists. In the Pali texts there are two important mental capacities, the first is sati, calling to mind, and the second sampashanya, awareness of oneself. When you are aware of the movements of your hand, you have both sati and sampashanya. The fruit from doing this is very great, it is incalculable. You cannot buy non-suffering, but must practice by yourself, until it arises by itself, because it is already there. Making merit and keeping precepts are like unhusked rice, which is inedible, but useful because we can use it to grow next year's crop. Making ourself calm is like husked but uncooked rice, and is still inedible. There are two kinds of calmness. The first is samatha, concentration, one-pointedness, calmness, the second vipassana, seeing the true nature of personal existence, calmness. In doing samatha meditation you must sit still, close your eyes, and watch your inhalations and exhalations. When the breathing becomes very subtle, sometimes you are not conscious of the breath, and you feel very calm, but the dosa, moha, lopa cannot be eliminated, because there is still not knowing, and you are not aware of thought. But vipassana meditation can get rid of dosa, moha, lopa, and this kind of calmness can be experienced anywhere and at any time. So we do not have to sit with eyes and ears closed. Our eyes can see, our ears can listen, but when thought arises we see it. This kind of calmness is latent in everybody. Our mind is originally clean, illuminated and calm. That which is not clean, illuminated and calm is not our mind. It is kilesa, defilement. We try to conquer this kilesa, but in actuality there is no kilesa at all. So how can we conquer it? The only thing that we can do is just to see original mind clearly, to encounter the thought clearly. When we see the mind clearly, there is no moha. The word clean indicates the mind's natural state, not stained or covered by anything. We have satipanya penetrate into the mind and see it, knowing it to be stable and unaffected by anything. This is the cleanness of the mind. The illumination of the mind is like having a bright light that allows us to go in safety wherever we may go. In this radiance we see our life mind all the time, every minute, every second, every instant. This is the illumination of the mind. Calm means cessation, the cessation of dosa, moha, lopa, of all agitation and difficulty, the cessation, too, of seeking any method or system. We need no longer look for a teacher because we really know, for and by and in ourself. When we really know the mind, we know it to be clean, illuminated and calm at all times. When we know the mind, we know how dukkha arises and how dukkha ceases. We know thought every time it thinks. We are even aware of our heartbeat. And whatever our movements are, we know them. We know by watching naturally, without strain or tension. The knowing is very quick, it is quicker than lightning, quicker than electricity, quicker than anything. The knowing is the same as panya, the same as satipanya, sati and samadhi and panya, they are all the same. The panya really knows everything. Even when the slightest sound occurs, we know it. The wind touches our skin, we know it. Thought arising in any manner, we know it. When the thought is deep, the panya is also quick. However quickly thought arises, the panya knows the thought. This is called patijjasamuppada, dependent co-arising. When there is no avidya, not knowing, the structure that gives rise to dukkha is broken, because the knowing is there. You may have heard that the Buddha cut his hair just once and it never grew again. This is a riddle. When hair is cut, it cannot attach itself again. This is analogous to cutting off avidya so that it cannot arise again. This is the inviolable law of nature, just like the rope that, stretched between two posts, cannot be tied once it has been cut. When we see this point, we know that it is latent within each person. Then why is it so difficult? It is not difficult, but it is also not easy. It is difficult and it is easy. There is a saying in northeastern Thailand, the poor are rich, the rich suffer. Why suffer? Why poor? The rich are rich in money alone, but poor in not seeing their own nature. The poor are rich with law of nature. Money cannot bring anybody to this point. Every person has the same ability to reach this point, because everybody has it. It does not matter whether we are woman or man, Thai, Chinese, or Westerner, and it is not dependent on religious belief. We all have the same original mind. This is the law of nature, just as everybody is composed of the same four elements. I can assure you that each and every person can practice, but you must have a sincere mind. I believe the saying that Dhamma existed before the arising of the Buddha. The Buddha was the first one to discover it. Before the Buddha, Dhamma was concealed. The Buddha only uncovered Dhamma. This true nature exists in every person. When you stand up, this nature stands up with you. When you sit, it also sits. When you sleep, it sleeps along with you. When you go to the toilet, it accompanies you to the toilet. It goes everywhere with you, so you can practice everywhere. So you should know how to practice, you should know how to see thought. When you know the source of thought, this is a very important point. From this point the way will reveal itself. When we have the right view and the right path, then certainly we will reach the goal. In listening to a Dhamma talk, in giving charity, in keeping precepts, in practicing samatha meditation or even vipassana meditation, if we do not reach this goal they are good only in a worldly sense, but not in the real sense. If we do not give charity or keep precepts or practice meditation, and still reach this point, then everything is done, like the sky covering the earth, it covers everything. So the 84,000 discourses in the Tipitaka, the Pali Canon, which is the whole teaching of the Buddha, are included in this point. If you study the entire Tipitaka, you should come to this point. If you finish the entire Tipitaka but have not come to this point, then you still have doubts, and therefore dukkha. Now we do not have to learn any sutta, the discourses of the Buddha, Vinaya, the code of monastic discipline, or Abhidhamma, the systematic analysis of the teaching found in the suttas, which together comprise the Tipitaka, but we have to come to an awareness of this point. When we reach this point, we will know the whole of the Tipitaka. Once the Buddha, walking in front of the forest with a number of monks, grasped some dried leaves and asked those monks, the leaves in the forest or the leaves in my hand, when compared which are more? The monks answered, the leaves in the whole forest are much more than the leaves in your hand, venerable sir. The Buddha then said, Dhamma that I know is great, like the leaves in the whole forest. But Dhamma that I teach you is like a handful of leaves. Please understand the meaning, the Buddha teaches only dukkha and its extinction, nothing else. Studying texts, giving charity, keeping precepts, practicing samatha meditation or vipassana meditation should bring us to this point, otherwise they are useless. When we reach this point, everything is done. So open up the covered thing. Because every person has doubts in seeking the method to be free from confusion, today I will talk about the method and about the practices that I developed previously. Formerly, I learned many kinds of gammatthana, meditation, lit. Working ground, such as inhale bud, exhale, do, and sitting cross-legged with eyes closed, all sorts of methods like that. I learned internal recitation of Sama Arahang. And I practiced the method of the rising and falling of the abdomen, this is also a method of inhalation and exhalation. And then I came to the method of breath counting, yet another practice of inhalation and exhalation. Then I came to practice anapanasati, awareness of in and out breaths, knowing the short inhalation and the short exhalation and also knowing the long inhalation and the long exhalation. These kinds of methods that I practiced, I didn't have any insight. These kinds of methods lead to calmness, but it was a different kind of calmness that I was seeking. Most people are seeking calmness, but the sitting calmness is the calmness that is not calm. So I continued my seeking to encounter the truth. Truth is the reality that is latent in everybody, regardless of nationality, language, or uniform. What is latent in everybody is what I was seeking, until I found it and could see it clearly, could understand it clearly. That is the real calmness. There are two kinds of calmness. The calmness that is not knowing needs to sit quietly and to sit alone. That is not real calmness. The calmness that I am going to tell you about today is the calmness that we don't have to seek. Why don't we have to seek it? Because we know the end of dukkha, suffering. This is called calmness. And we don't have to learn from anyone else anymore. Now, everybody, please listen carefully. First, the method that led me to find real calmness. Without paying any special attention to any point, I just do the movement, and just have sati, awareness, knowing all postures and all movements, such as standing, walking, sitting, lying, bending, stretching, and all the movements. When I have practiced in this way, and have awareness of all my movements, panya, knowing, arises within myself. Aware of myself, not others, I know rup, body, I know nam, mind, I know the disease of rup, I know the disease of nam. There are two kinds of rup disease, nam disease. Disease in the body, such as headache or stomachache. With this kind of disease we have to go to the hospital to see the doctor. The doctor will check the body and the cause of the disease, and, knowing the nature of the disease, can apply the medicine that cures it. Then we recover. Another kind of disease is when the mind thinks and we are content or discontent, glad or sad. This kind of disease cannot be cured by the doctor in the hospital, but you have to study yourself until you know the source of thought. To cure this kind of disease you have to study yourself until you really know. When I know the source of thought, I have found calmness, but only a small amount of calmness arises. The real calmness is when we can cease to seek, when we don't have to run around to find anyone else, that is called calmness. I continue to do more awareness of myself, panya rises, and I know dukkha, anajang, anatta, suffering, impermanence, not self, and I know samyati, supposition. Whatever supposition exists in the world, know it completely, know it to the end, know it to the whole, and know everything that is in the world. What supposition is called samyati paniyati, convention of supposing, paramathapaniyati, convention of the touchable, athapaniyati, the deep meaning of the Dhamma, and ariyapaniyati, agreement between those that have become Dhamma. We have to really know these four conventions completely, really know them to the end, and really know them to the whole. After I know samyati completely, I know sasana, religion, I know papa, sin, I know punya, merit, I really know these things. Usually we attach to samyati, such as we attach to Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, or Islam. These things are only samyati. The real religion is everyone. Buddha sasana, Buddhism, is satapanya, awareness knowing, which is in everybody. I can assure you on this point. When I know myself, I know everyone is like myself, because everyone can know. Now I will talk more about hapapa. Hapapa is when one doesn't know oneself. The most hapapa in the world is any person who doesn't know her, or himself. Hapunya is somebody that is self-aware. If you are aware of yourself you are one that has hapunya, and are capable of really making yourself a noble individual, ariyapugala, this is called calmness. To be aware of oneself doesn't mean that we are aware that we are male or female, we are Mr. A or Mr. B, but to be aware of oneself is to have sati in every moment. Whatever movement the body makes, we are aware of it. Whatever the mind thinks, we are aware of it. This awareness really arises from the law of nature. When thought arises we see it, know it, and understand it. When we see it, thought stops by itself. When thought stops, Panya arises, and we know the source of dosa, moha, lopa, anger, delusion, greed. We know that dosa, moha, lopa is not in ourself. Whenever we cannot see our own life, cannot see our own mind, in that moment we are unaware of ourself, we forget ourself. When we are unaware of ourself, dosa, moha, lopa arises. When it arises we suffer. Everybody hates dukkha, but we don't know dukkha, so we seek calmness. Therefore we cannot have calmness just by sitting. That is not the way to calmness. The calmness that I mean is the calmness of freedom from dosa, freedom from moha, freedom from lopa, and this kind of calmness is in everybody without exception. Knowing this, I can guarantee that every person can attain this calmness. Whatever nationality, language, or religion, whether you are a Hindu, a Buddhist, a Christian, a Muslim, or whatever religion, you can learn yourself, because everyone has body-mind. All of you sitting here now and listening to my talk, the mind of everyone is like this. Our life mind is already clean, illuminated and calm, but when we say that the mind is clean, illuminated and calm, we just imitate the words of others, we don't really see it. When we really see it, we will be able to guarantee that it is already there in everybody and that anybody, if they really practice, they must know it, they must see it, and they must have it. When we know it and see it, we can guarantee that this teaching can apply to everybody in any social class and of any age. A millionaire can practice, somebody who doesn't even have one coin can practice. An educated person with many degrees can practice, the illiterate can also practice. I can really guarantee this point, but we have to know the correct method, and see into our mind. Now, all of you listening to my talk, just look into your own mind, and you will know the characteristic of the mind. Here is a parallel. The seed of any kind of fruit, if we plant it in well-watered soil, under good conditions, it will have issue. An ordinary rice or sticky rice or whatever kind of grain we plant, it too will have issue and grow up. This is like every person. If you listen, and understand it, and bring it into practice, you will know. When we don't know and we don't understand, it is like the thin grain, or the husk without any grain inside. When we plant it in the paddy field it has no shoot, it doesn't grow up. This is the same as when people who come to teach don't really know themselves, they teach others, so other people do not know. I will raise another parallel. Suppose that during daytime the sunlight is dull, but actually the sun is always bright. Our mind is like the sun, it is clean, illuminated and calm, like the sun all the time. But whenever we lose our way from the source of our life mind, we will not see where Buddha is, we will not know where Buddhism is, and we will not see where calmness is. When we don't know, we seek teachers, but that is for somebody who doesn't know. If you want to have calmness, or Buddha, you don't have to do many things. Just come to see the source of your own life. When thought arises, don't enter into the thought, but cut away the thought and come out of the thought immediately. Do it like the cat and rat. When the rat emerges, the cat pounces upon it immediately. The thought is the same. When it thinks, sati or panya will know immediately, thought is stopped. Do it often in this manner. Or it is like boxers. When we face the fighter we have to fight, we punch to the eyes. The fighter will not be able to fight us. Dosa, moha, lopa is the same. When we come to this point, Buddha will arise within ourself. Buddha is the mind that is clean, the mind that is illuminated, and the mind that is calm. Each of us, we are not angry for 24 hours, we are not greedy for 24 hours, but only moha, we do not know it. When we come to know this point, we will know more and more. Panya will arise and arise. It is like pouring water into a bottle. The water in the bottle will come up to the brim. When it is full to the brim, we cannot put anything in it. Sati, samadhi, panya, awareness, setting up the mind, knowing, is the same thing. This can be called calmness in Buddhism, or it can be calmness in Christianity, or we can call it whatever we like. Truth is in everybody. When one knows it, one can live in the world without any dukkha, one can do any work without dukkha. Whether one is a teacher or merchant or parent or worker, only when one knows the method of practice, when one comes to the end it will decrease by itself. It is like a leech attached to our skin. We don't have to force, to tear it out, but just bring some lime and tobacco leaf mixed with water, squeeze it onto the leech, and the leech will detach by itself. When we come to know this point we will have no doubt, and we don't need to seek any more teachers. We will know that the end of dukkha is here. Today I have talked about truth, appropriate to the time. I will finish talking now. Anyone that has any questions, feel free to ask. Audience. Why are people neurotic? Luangpor. Because we think a lot and we never see thought. We only see outside ourselves, that this person is rich, that person poor, this person beautiful, that person not beautiful, somebody who has a car only sees their car, somebody who has jewels only sees jewels, somebody with a watch only sees their watch. They never see their own life, their own mind. This is moha, delusion. To see our own mind clearly, without trying to do anything with or about it, simply seeing it and letting it go, this is the way to freedom from dukkha, freedom from all neurosis. So we should develop sati. Develop means to make much of it. As sati grows, its ability to penetrate into and reveal the mind also grows. If we only practice keeping the precepts or doing calmness meditation, it is still not safe. It is like lighting a candle in a dark cave. The darkness shrinks a little but is still there with us, we are still in the dark, and when the candle goes out the darkness immediately covers everything again. So we should emerge from the cave by having sati all the time, in every movement. This is an easy method. Anyone can do it, and it can be practiced everywhere. Audience. When we see thought and the source of thought, will suffering and all kinds of tension end or not? Luangpor. Not end yet, because we only know it but we still do not do anything with it. We only know and see thought, we only know the source of thought, but sometimes we lose the way of it. For example, each day we may know it 10 times, but the not knowing is more. So it is not the end. But it is the beginning of destroying moha in the source of thought. Audience. I would like to ask, during Luangpor's practice, before coming to the end, was there any point where you had doubt arising, and was there any sign that released you from the doubt whether there was any more moha or not? Luangpor. It has a sign, but not a physical sign. The sign is that you see yourself and you have no moha. It is as if an overturned bowl had been set aright. Or it is like uncovering something that has been covered over and hidden. Only anyone that comes to this point will know it, and will immediately have no doubt. We don't have to talk about dosa, moha, lopa, because it is quite common, it is a shallow matter. When we talk about seeing thought, most people know thought but they do not see thought. When we know thought, thought will still continue, and we lose our way in the continuity of thought, we have moha in thought, then dosa, moha, lopa comes at this point. So this is why a person who knows thought still has dosa, moha, lopa. Audience. In seeing the thought, does the mind talk inside? Luangpor. No, not the mind talking inside. When we see it, it is detached. It is like the leech. When we know thought it is like trying to pull the leech out of the skin. But when we really see it, we don't have to force the leech, but only put tobacco leaf and lime mixed with water onto the leech, and the leech will detach by itself. So if we really know, we don't have to listen to anybody. It is like we are sitting here now, we don't have any dosa or lopa, and we only have moha, because we do not see our life. When we see and know our own life all the time, dosa, moha, lopa cannot arise. So our mind is clean, our life is not dirty, there is no external sign, people cannot see, but we know and see ourselves. Audience. Luangpor says that when we see thought, thought will stop immediately. I am not sure about this. If it is true, I would like to ask, when we see thought and thought stops, do we know what the next thought is? Luangpor. Don't pay attention to the next thought. Only see the thought, it will stop by itself. Don't pay attention to where the thought comes from. When we see it, dosa, moha, lopa cannot arise. Audience. Luangpor teaches to see thought. Who is the one seeing the thought? Luangpor. Don't seek the subject, and we will see that one is the refuge of oneself. And that is the real refuge. We can either say the person knows, or we can say that Satapanya knows, whatever we may say, because there is no self that we can catch and take a look at. Because to see and to know are two different things. To know is entering into thought, and thought continues. Audience. I have listened to Luangpor, and have the feeling that thoughts, and emotions like gladness and sadness, are something external. They are like rice and curry, which we can make use of, we can eat them, and we can see them. But when these things arise in us, we cannot see them, either thoughts or emotions. This is not a question, but I would like Luangpor to make it clear. Luangpor. To see thought is one thing, to know thought is another thing. When we see thought, we can detach from thought. When we know thought, we still attach to thought. So knowing thought is the knowledge that belongs to avidya, not knowing, the knowledge of a person who has no panya. But with the knowledge of one that has panya, to know and to see can be separated. It is vidya, knowing, or panya. Panya and vidya will separate thought apart, and that is the end of dukkha. So one that has panya knows like this. But I can assure you that all of you here can do it. Please try it yourself. Just to listen you cannot know it. It is only memorizing. If we practice it, we will come to see clearly, to know really. This is our own knowledge, so it is called buddho, which means to see, or to detach. Audience. When we know truth, and we know it clearly, is there any guarantee that, after knowing the knowledge will not disappear again? When we know, do we know for good, or can it disappear? Luangpor. It is something inside us. It does not disappear. Suppose we know our eyes. We have our eyes all the time. This is the symbol that everyone has it and can teach it to others. I can assure you that all of you here, practicing this method, will not take longer than 3 years to know. Audience. Luangpor, would you please give a blessing to all those here? Luangpor. When a monk gives people the moral precepts and a blessing, that is one kind of goodness, but the real morality and real blessing is alertness and awareness of yourself. Please, each of you, practice the awareness wherever you are, at home or the office, in all movements, and that will become the real morality, the real blessing. The real morality, the real blessing will occur when you know, you see, and you understand by yourself, and when you respect yourself. Then it will not rain hard on that. Today is an important day, that we gather to listen to my talk on truth. What I am going to talk about is what I experienced. I have practiced it, and the result it has given me is that I have no doubts. All of you here want no dukkha, suffering, like myself I suppose. In reality, in actuality, there is no dukkha, We suffer only because we don't know it. All of you listening to my talk right now have no dosa, anger, no lopa, greed, and no moha, delusion. The origin of the mind of human beings in every nation and of every language is as such. Please set up the mind to listen, and bring it into practice. First of all, we have to practice awareness. Most people do not understand, so they try to find calmness, but without success. I did that also. I sought calmness, but I didn't know where calmness was. Now I would like to talk about another kind of calmness. The calmness of freedom from not knowing, because we know and because we are alert. The calmness of freedom from uncalm, of freedom from doubt, because when we practice the correct method of awareness we will know the supposition of everything there is in the world, because the awareness of ourself will bring panya, knowing. There are 4 kinds of panya: knowing by memorizing, knowing by recognizing, clearly knowing, and really knowing. And all these panya are in every person. Sajja means truth. There are 4 levels of knowing Dhamma: to know Samyati Sajja, conventional truth; Paramatha Sajja, directly contacted truth; Athasajja, the deep truth; and Ariya Sajja, the fundamentally transforming truth. And this can make anybody become a noble individual, regardless of social class or language. The first step is Sotapanya, the second step, Sakadagami, the third step, Anagami, and the fourth step, Arahant, the 4 stages in the change from being hopelessly deceived to fully freed. Now in the beginning stage of practice, we know Vatu, thingness; we know Paramatha, mind touchable; we know Akara, change in Jess. The mind will change to be Ariya, noble, because we have clearly seen the source of dosa, moha, lopa, anger, delusion, greed, and then clearly known the source of Vedana, sunya, sankhara, vijnana, feeling, percept, conceiving, knowingness. This is called to clearly know and to really know with jnana-panya, the knowledge of full awareness knowing, that arises from the developing of sati, awareness. Next, we use sati to see the mind; panya will arise, and we will know the source of kilesa, defilement, stickiness, tanha, craving, heaviness, upadana, attachment, and kama, action. Next, use sati to see the mind again; whatever thought arises see it immediately, and we will know the deception, know in time, know the protection and know the cure. We will know how to conquer conceptual thought. Sila, moral conduct, will occur within our own mind. It is not the person who observes Sila, but Sila observes the person. Sila means normality. Whenever the mind thinks abnormally we see the thought immediately; this is called Sila observing us. People who only keep the precepts will not know this mind's occurrence. So Sila is a tool to get rid of crude kilesa, to destroy dosa, moha, lopa, to destroy kilesa, tanha, and upadana. Then Sila appears. Samadhi, steadiness of the mind, setting up the mind, is the tool to get rid of the median kilesa. Median kilesa is the attachment to calmness. I have done breathing meditation, which brings calmness, but it is the kind of calmness dependent upon moha. I did that because I didn't know the real calmness at that time. Now I know calmness. Real calmness is clearly seeing, really knowing, and really understanding. This kind of calmness, everyone can do it when they know the source of moha. Whether you are a teacher, student, merchant, or homemaker, you can do it. Everybody needs calmness, and this kind of calmness, whatever kind of work you do you still have it, because you know the source of moha. We don't have to sit with eyes closed to get calmness, but we can have calmness in this very society. Whenever conceiving thought arises, samadhi will see it immediately. Samadhi doesn't mean to sit with eyes closed. Samadhi means setting up the mind to see our own mind, to see our own work. Now panya gets rid of the subtle kilesa. We know the subtle kilesa when we know the source of thought whenever it arises. Whatever we do now, we have normality in speech and mind. When all these conditions gather, there will arise a kind of jnana, insight knowledge, and it will break apart from the person. Only the one that practices will know. All of you sitting here now have as yet no jnana, but the non-suffering and non-happiness is already there. When we don't have jnana we don't know it, so we seek calmness. Now, as you are sitting here, look at your own mind. You don't have jealousy, ill will, and aggression. Now your mind is indifferent, not suffering and not happy, beyond good and evil. This state is in everybody, and this is the calmness that everyone is seeking. Somebody who doesn't know comes to teach people. A lot of people follow that person and sit with eyes closed, trying to find calmness. This is trying to get something that doesn't really exist, trying to make something that cannot be real become real. It is impossible. So that is only the state of delusion. Now we come to know the real thing. It is called upekha, indifference, equanimity. It is our own mind. It is like something that is covered over. Now, when we come to see our own mind, it will be revealed. So we don't have to do anything with calmness, because it is already there. The only thing we have to do is know the method of practice. The method of practice is to know the movements of the body. We don't have to watch the movements of our breathing, we have to know the movements of the physical body and then see the movement of the mind. Breathing is never glad or sad, it never hates anybody or likes anybody. What is angry is the mind that is thinking. What is pleased is also the mind that is thinking. So we come to see only this point. To see this point is to be aware of thought. In order to see thought, don't enter thought. As soon as it thinks, detach from thought, like a cat catching a rat. We don't have to teach the cat to catch rats, but whenever a rat comes the cat will get it. The clear knowing and real knowing is the same thing. Most people understand Vipassana only as memorizing and recognizing. Very few know clearly and know really. Anyone that will clearly know and really know must make an effort always. Wherever they go they always watch thought, going to the toilet, eating food, whatever they do they look at thought. When we watch thought a lot, like a cat watching for rats, then when thought arises sati or Vipassana will clearly see immediately. This is called Vipassana, getting rid of the subtle kilesa. When we come to this point it is like the hidden thing is revealed, and we will know all religion, we will see with self-understanding the teaching of any religion. We will understand Hinduism or Christianity. We don't understand now because we just memorize from the texts. That is only a kind of history. Now we come to study at ourself. Reality is in us. Texts are only the words of other people. We come to see our own mind, and we will be another knowing individual. I will stop now. Anyone that has questions can ask. Audience. Luangpor teaches that when we go to the toilet we also watch thought. Shall we watch our walking, or shall we watch thought, or what shall we watch? Luangpor. Thought arises even when we do not pay attention to it. So when it arises we will see it, we will know it, we will understand it. If we pay too much attention trying to see it, it will not think. So we should practice in an indifferent, detached way. When it thinks we will know. Samadhi is also awareness. When you are aware of yourself, that is samadhi. When it thinks and you see thought, that is samadhi. Audience. When I sit I can watch the thought, but when I walk to the toilet and intend to see the thought, when thought arises should I stop walking and see the thought, or what should I do? Luangpor. You don't have to stop walking, just be aware of yourself. When we are aware of ourself, that is samadhi. Whatever movement we make we will know it. Unintended thought will arise by itself. If we do not see it we will attach to it, and this is dukkha. So we come to know the cause of dukkha. Normally our mind is indifferent. It can think without dukkha, and we know that it thinks without dukkha, but when we do not see thought we follow thought, we enter the cave, and that is dukkha. To see thought is difficult for somebody who doesn't understand, but it is easy for one that understands. To see thought doesn't concern any kind of work. We can write, and when thought arises we see it. When we walk to the bathroom, or when we are bathing, and it thinks, we just see it. So we don't have to do anything with calmness, because calmness is already there. The real calmness is when we see thought. Audience. So we don't have to stop thinking. Luangpor. Right. Just watch the movement of the mind. Don't force the mind not to think, don't try to prevent or force the mind not to think, don't try to prevent or get rid of thought. Many people want to tranquilize the mind, they don't want the mind to think. That is the understanding of others. But in my view we should let the mind think. The more it thinks the more we know. It is like when we dig a new well, the water is at first full of dirt. So we have to empty out the water, bucketful after bucketful. We don't have to stop up the hole out of which the water is flowing, but we let the water flow, as much water as possible, and we continue emptying out the dirty water. We clean the edge of the well and continue emptying out the water. We do it again and again. We do it until all the dirt is gone and the water flowing out of the hole is clear and pure. If anything were now to fall into the well we should see it and know it immediately. So we don't have to stop the mind from thinking. Sometimes it thinks this, sometimes it thinks that, but we just see it immediately, like cat catching rat, and the more it thinks the more we empty it out. When thought arises we see it, that is the important thing. Audience. When we sleep and when we are awake, do we watch thought in the same way? Luangpor. The same. When we cannot see thought, when thought arises during the day we don't know it. At night when we dream, we also don't know it. Now, when we see thought wherever we go, when thought arises we know it. At night we sleep, and when it thinks we also know it. Audience. I am still puzzled. Should we see thought or should we see ourselves? Luangpor. They are the same. We can call it seeing thought, and we are also aware of ourself at the same time. Audience. I would like Luangpor to explain the difference between knowing thought and seeing thought. Luangpor. When we know thought we enter into thought, and thought still continues, it doesn't stop. But when we see thought, when thought arises it stops immediately. So we should practice often to see thought. There will arise yana banyat. Do it like boxers. Every boxer wants to be world champion. Boxers need to be very quick. Dosa, moha, lopa is quick in one way, sati, samadhi, banya is quick in another way. When we train sati samadhi banya, to be very very quick, it will be world champion, it will conquer the world. This conscious body is the world. Do we want dosa, moha, lopa, or sati, samadhi, banya, to rule the world? If dosa, moha, lopa rules the world, it is a world of endless sorrow, endless dukkha. If sati, samadhi, banya, rules the world, it is a world of radiance and peace. Audience. When we watch our movements and thought arises, how can we know it? Luangpor. If you want to know, you have to practice yourself. Audience. Is discovery of calmness the same as discovery of oneself? Luangpor. Yes. Audience. If we can find calmness within ourselves, how can we keep it with us all the time? Luangpor. It is there all the time. What is not there all the time is not calmness. Audience. People have kamma and kamma disturbs us. So how can we be calm? Luangpor. No, not in that way. We just think ourselves. Karma just means action, not those kinds of karma that you did in the previous life. Audience. If we don't think about karma, then there is no karma, is there? Luangpor. Right, we don't have to think of it. Audience. People are seeking the same thing, but why are there so many thoughts? Luangpor. Because there are many different teachings, many books, much talking, so all are mixed up, and this causes suffering. This way of calmness doesn't concern studying books. It doesn't concern anything. When we read many books, or listen to many teachers, we only have knowledge for talking, so we don't have the experience of the real calmness. Audience. How can it be there all the time? Luangpor. If we add colored dye to water, people say that the water is red, or the water is black, or whatever color it is. But in reality water is colorless, and if what is not water is removed then we see it. Upekha is the mind's natural state. It is present in everybody without exception. When somebody becomes very angry, Upekha anchors that person just like a ship's anchor and therefore they don't die of shock. When somebody becomes very greedy and would like to take a great deal away from others, Upekha is like a ball and chain, holding back and moderating the greed, so that it doesn't totally unbalance that person. So Upekha is already there, we don't have to seek it. It is like the sun when it is hidden by clouds. Dosa, moha, lopa, when it arises, obscures Upekha. But when we clearly see our mind, Upekha is uncovered. Audience. Luangpor said that gladness and sadness are the same thing. How can they be the same? Luangpor. They are dukkha. Gladness is one kind of dukkha, sadness is another kind of dukkha. Unknowing people live with dukkha, eat with dukkha, walk and stand and sit with dukkha, sleep with dukkha, wherever they go they bring dukkha along. When they see a movie they laugh, laughter is a form of dukkha. When they meet with sadness they cry, crying is a form of dukkha. Gladness and sadness, both of them are forms of dukkha. Just so, I imagine that there are two kinds of darkness, white darkness and black darkness. When we earn a lot of money we are glad. That is dukkha. It is the white darkness. When we lose money we are sad and the mind thinks angry thoughts. This is also dukkha. It is the black darkness. But both are dukkha. Audience. In reality there is no gladness or sadness, they just arise from moha, don't they? Luangpor. Just like that. Audience. Luangpor said that all kinds of gladness are dukkha. Is there some kind of gladness that is not dukkha, for example love between husband and wife? Luangpor. All are dukkha. Audience. How about gladness in Dhamma, or sometimes when we look at the sunshine we feel happy? Luangpor. That is not dukkha, not suffering or happiness, not gladness or sadness. It is indifference, equanimity. Audience. I would like Luangpor to explain the thing that is called love. For example, a woman and man who are going to get married. Luangpor. Somebody who doesn't know dukkha will approach dukkha, and dukkha will teach its lesson. Audience. When we see thought, it stops. So during which time do we see the three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, and anatta? Do we see them when we see thought, or before seeing thought, or when we think of them? Luangpor. When we think of them that is not seeing with jnana-panya, it is just memorizing or recognizing. After we clearly know and really know we don't have to ask anyone. Audience. How about the intention to do something? Suppose that somebody says something bad to us, and we have the intention to harm them. Luangpor. To harm is stupid. When we know the states of suffering and of happiness, we do not want anybody to suffer. We will help all to live without dukkha. Audience. When I am going to give money to beggar, I know my thought, which is to give money. To see that thought, is that called punya? Luangpor. That is not called punya, it is called knowing from memory. All of us have mind, so before doing or saying anything, just look at our mind. Our real mind or real life doesn't hate anybody and doesn't love anybody. When we hate or we love, that is kilesa arising. So just come to see the mind at the beginning, and dosa, moha, lopa will be destroyed. After that, Vedana, Sunya, Sankhara, Vijnana, will still be there, but they are pure and have no dukkha. Continue to see the mind. We will see kilesa. Kilesa is like gladness and sadness. When we like something and we give it to somebody, it isn't that this is not kilesa, because we like the person that we give it to, we give it with kilesa, we don't give with indifference. Pra, venerable, noble, is indifference. Pra means one that teaches others to be indifferent. Audience. When we give charity, we usually think of metta, loving kindness, and karuna, compassion. So where is karuna and where is metta? Luangpor. Those are just words for talking. It is not Dhamma. It is social. Audience. If we don't have metta and karuna, how can we have the motive to do good for others? Luangpor. That is the beginning stage, or the foundation for ethics of the world. Audience. In the case of Luangpor, who is trying to help us to be free from dukkha, isn't it the metta of Luangpor? Luangpor. Not metta. Anybody that would like to have Dhamma, just accept it. We don't have gladness or sadness. It is like when we see someone that is drowning, we jump into the water and help them without thinking anything. Audience. When that person sees someone drowning and helps immediately, is it the result of social ethics or is it their own nature? Luangpor. It is their own nature. But when we try to help other people, we don't see our mind, but the nature of the mind is already there, the indifference is already there, we never come to see it and we try some other way. That is why we don't have real calmness. Visible here and now. Calling to come and see. The Dhamma of an instant. Today I would like to bring to you the truth, as I have heard it from the elders, who passed this truth on from generation to generation. It may be that you've heard it, it may be that you haven't. When listening, please set up the mind to listen, listen with sati, samadhi, panya, awareness, steadiness of mind, knowing. Consider these words, and find their actuality at last. In everything that happens there must be cause and effect. For example, the cause is that we go to work, the effect is that we earn money, the cause is that we go to study, the effect is that we gain knowledge. So the knowledge is the result of the study. Therefore the cause is to be diligent and the effect will be truly useful. The elders used to teach that the cause is developing sati, awareness, the result is the knowledge that arises. They have said so. Whether or not the Buddha talks in this way, or whether or not your parents and teachers talked in this way, make the experiment, and discover for yourself whether it is true or not. We have to consider and to really know it. The cause is called the developing of sati, the truth is called sajja. Whether or not we know it, it is still there, like something beneath an overturned bowl, we right the bowl, and what was concealed is revealed. Or it is like opening up what was closed. You should try it, and see for yourself whether it is like this or not. You can sit with legs tucked back to one side, sit with legs outstretched, sit on a chair, or sit in half lotus. Rest your hand on your thigh. Now turn the hand up onto its edge, having awareness of doing it. Turning the hand is the cause, the awareness of doing it is the effect. Turn the hand back down, having awareness of it. The cause is turning the hand down, the effect is the awareness that coincides with the movement. Turn the hand up, being aware of the movement. Turn the hand back down, being aware of the movement in the movement. The cause is turning the hand up and being aware of it, and turning the hand down and being aware of it. The effect is that the knowing will accumulate. So when you are doing this, are in the rhythm of it, developing sati, you can say it is the same as the Buddha's teaching, the same as the elders' teaching. You should develop sati. When you develop sati, panya will arise. The elders used to tell us that Buddha taught the 4 satipatthana, the bases of awareness, or the 4 major postures, which are standing, walking, sitting and lying down. You have sati in these postures, then you have the sati to know other, minor movements. In all minor movements, stretching, bending, and all other movements, have the sati to know it. The effect will be the knowledge that arises. Some people may say that this accords with the texts, some may say that this does not accord with the texts, but please listen, and try to practice yourself. If it is useful, we use it. If it is useless, we cast it away. The knowledge that we have learned, we know it already, but the knowledge we have never heard, please try it and find it for yourself. This is a practice I have done. Sit comfortably, back erect, hands palm down upon the thighs. Now turn the right hand up onto its edge, being aware of the movement. Then raise the hand straight up to chest height, being aware of the movement. Then bring the hand down to rest on the abdomen, being aware of the movement. Now repeat these 3 movements with the left hand. Then, having sati in each movement, move the right hand up the chest, then swing it out to above the right leg, then lower it to rest on the thigh, and then turn the hand back down again. And now repeat these 4 movements with the left hand. This is rhythmic practice. It is called the minor movements. Humans cannot stay still, so we find some work for the body to do and then use the sati to be with the movement. You can call it sati or you can call it samadhi. The feeling is called sati, samadhi is setting up the mind. When you do it, have awareness of it. If you don't set up the mind, then you will not know. When you blink, you know it. We blink since our birth from our mother's womb, but we don't know it. When we look to the left or look to the right, we don't know it. We don't have sati, samadhi. We have only the usual sati samadhi, but we don't set up the mind to know it. If we set up the mind to know it, the sati will be newly built sati. Samadhi is setting up the mind. We breathe since we were born from our mother's womb, but we don't know it. Now we set up the mind, and breathe in and out, then we know it. When thought arises, then we know it. The knowing is caused by the developing of sati. So I would like all of you to take this teaching and use it. Ordained, all right. Not ordained, all right. Believe any religion, all right. Wear any uniform, all right. Keep the precepts, all right. Don't keep the precepts, all right. Give a lot of charity, all right. Don't give any charity at all, all right. If you don't develop sati, then you will not know, even though you make merit, keep the precepts or practice a lot of calmness meditation. The knowing will arise because of the developing of sati. When we have more and more awareness, then the unawareness, which is moha, or delusion, will fade away. When we have more and more sati, more and more samadhi, panya will arise. This is called panya parami, the perfection of wisdom. I do not talk according to the texts, panya is already there, parami means the readiness to know, if we practice in the right way. If we practice in the wrong way, then we will not know. Now if we know the real thing, not knowing outside ourself. We know within ourself. We know ourself. Sitting here we know ourself to be Rupnam, body, mind. Turning the hand up is Rup Nam, turning the hand down is Rup Nam, continuing turning the hand up and down is Rup Nam. This is knowing Rup Nam. Then we know the action of Rup Nam. When Rup acts, Nam acts simultaneously. When Rup Nam acts, we know it. We know it because of the developing of Sati. Panya arises because of the developing of Sati. We know Rup disease, Nam disease. This born Rup has disease, like headache, stomachache, fever, and so on. Another kind of Rup disease, Nam disease, thought is Nam, but when it thinks it is the Rup. When some people talk and that makes us satisfied or dissatisfied, our mind has disease. Really know this thing. The developing of Sati is cause, the arising of Panya is effect. After knowing Rup Nam, we come to know Dukkang, Anajang, Anatta, suffering, impermanence, not self. People have taught that Dukkang, Anajang, Anatta, is white hair, wrinkled skin, broken teeth. That is true, but not true according to the developing of Sati. The developing of Sati will cause Panya to arise, that turning the hand up is Dukkang, lowering it is Dukkang. Dukkang is with the Rup. Rup is a kind of lump of dukkha. Dukkang is unbearable. Anajang is unstable. Anatta is uncontrollable. It is like that all the time. If we know it, it is like that. If we don't know it, it is also like that. So Dhamma, which makes a person become a Buddha, is there before the Buddha. Dhamma exists in everybody. It depends on the owner of each body to make this knowing happen. If we are able to know it, then we will know it. It is like the overturned bowl, whether it is overturned or set aright is up to us. Now we come to know sammuti, supposition. Know all kinds of samyati completely. We know that money is just a kind of metal, just a kind of paper, but we conventionalize it. Woman and man are samyati as well. When we don't know it, we suppose it to be woman and suppose it to be man. But if we don't suppose it, then we don't know them. Ordination and disrobing, monk and novice, all are samyati, just take a piece of cloth to wear. The knowing is sati, samadhi, panya, and sajja is truth. If it is true by samyati we know it. If it is true by paramatha, direct contact by the mind, we know it. Ghosts and deities are all sammuti. Have we ever seen them? A ghost is a person who acts, speaks, or thinks evil. The body doesn't do anything, it is Rup, like a doll. The thing that moves is the mind. Deities are the same, we suppose them. When we don't really know samyati, we don't know. We really don't know. I can guarantee that we don't know. I myself didn't know. But others may have, I don't know. I have done many kinds of meditation, like Buddho, Samarahang, counting breaths, the rise and fall of the abdomen, and sitting and observing the breath, but I really didn't know, the knowing didn't come, didn't arise. It led to calmness and attachment to calmness. So calmness, or samatakam matana, the working ground for tranquility, is like putting a rock on top of weeds. When we take the rock off, the weeds will grow better than before, because the soil has been kept moist. Vipassana means, clear insight, a complete uprooting. This is the real knowing. Anyone that does it, will know it. Anyone that was born as a human being, can do it, regardless of race, language, or religion. But we have to understand the correct method. Also we know sasana, religion. Sasana doesn't mean temples. The temple is just the supposed sasana. This is called samyati paniyati, convention of supposing. Paramatha, is the real thing, which exists in humans. Everyone is sasana. They say that sasana is teaching, they teach and the ear hears, then sati, samadhi, panya considers it, and becomes knowing. Really know that, oh, everyone is sasana. To destroy sasana doesn't mean to destroy temples or Buddha images, or Bodhi trees. To destroy sasana means to say bad things to people, to hit people, to kill people, which is great evil. So sasana is humanity. To curse someone is to curse sasana, to injure someone is to injure sasana, that is what evil is. Now Buddha sasana, Buddhism. Buddha means, one that knows. The body is like a doll. Sati, Samadhi, Panya is the knowing. So Buddha means Sati, Samadhi, Panya, or the mind that is clean, illuminated and calm, which exists in everybody without exception. Now we talk about papa, sin. Papa is not knowing, darkness, stupidity. We fear papa, but why don't we make ourselves realize, so that we will be free of that fear? Panya, merit, is knowing clearly. People, when they come too close to monks, they fear papa. It is as if monks are the papa itself. That is just samyati. Now we don't have to fear papa. If we cannot conquer papa, then we will have no chance and no time to conquer it. Don't fear papa, but try to conquer papa. This doesn't concern making merit, keeping precepts, or vinaya, the code monastic discipline. The developing of sati is dhamma, is vinaya, is sila, normality, and is everything. We know all this because we develop sati. If we do not develop sati, but just study, that is only to memorize, not to see clearly or to see really. The developing of sati is to know clearly, to know really. When one knows, one can assure oneself and others. Anyone that does it will know it, because everyone knows the same thing. The knowledge is the shared object of developing sati. The result of developing sati can end dukkha. We don't attach to samyati, we will not fear ghosts, we will not fear deities. We don't attach to any samyati at all, because anything that does not exist we don't have to fear. Ghosts and deities have no real existence, just samyati. A ghost is somebody who speaks, thinks, or does evil. A deity is one that speaks good, thinks good, or does good. We know how to be human. Ghosts arise in people while they speak, think, or do evil. When anger arises, and we can stop anger, that is human. When we can make our mind calm and clean all the time, that is deity, a mind worthy of respect. When we know like this, we can break through. So Vipassana has this object, the 6 sense bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, the 5 aggregates, that is from the texts, the 12 bases, the 18 elements, the 22 faculties, the 4 noble truths, and the 12 patijjasamuppada, dependent co-arising. We learn from the texts, we study it, but we don't know it. We just know from memory. When we come to develop sati, the knowing will arise, that is the real thing. When we use sati to watch thought, whenever thought arises we know it, because when we move we have sati. Thought has no real self. When thought arises we have sati and know it, like a cat watching a rat. When the rat emerges the cat catches it immediately. This is the same. When we have sati in each movement, when thought arises we know it, see it, and understand it. This means that we can untie it and conquer it. The elders said that to conquer others 100 or 1000 times has not the benefit of conquering oneself just one time. To conquer oneself is to conquer thought. When thought arises we see it and know it. Then it cannot proliferate. Whenever thought arises we know it. When we develop more and more sati, there will arise jnana panya, knowledge arising from full awareness knowing, to know clearly, to know really. Vatu, thingness, means everything in the world and in ourself, we have to know it all. Paramatha means, everything that exists in the world and in ourself, seeing it, having it, being it, right now in front of us, touchable with the mind, we have to know it all. Agara means, that everything in the world and in us can change. When we clearly comprehend it, then we see, know, understand, and touch, dosa, moha, lopa, anger, delusion, greed, because it is vatu, paramutha, akara. After knowing this, the mind will be very cheerful, and can see, vedana, sunya, sankhara, vijnana, feeling, percept, conceiving, knowingness, not being dukkha. The real pra, noble, inheres in this. Pra doesn't mean you shave your head, but means the quality of the mind. Paramutha means the real thing. The real pra is in everybody without exception. In this way of developing sati, the feeling of the movement is the cause, the effect is knowing all this. Pra means teacher, one that teaches. When they know this and teach this, there is no dukkha. A real pra knows samyati panyati, paramutha panyati, attha panyati, and ariya panyati, the four levels of designation. The mind has changed and we will really know this. If we know other things, it is not correct. We continue the practice. There will arise piti, rapture. We feel comfortable, the mind is light, it is like in darkness there arises the light, or the dirty becomes clean again. Or like black and white, or the heavy becoming light. The mind changes from one stage to another. When the knowing arises, the not knowing disappears immediately. When the quality of the real pra arises, the quality of not being a pra disappears immediately. When the quality of being deity arises, the quality of being ghost disappears immediately. When the quality of being human arises, the quality of being other disappears immediately. It arises and substitutes for the other. This is called to be born here and die here. Not being born from the womb of the mother and dying physically, that is another thing. That is also the supposing of dukkang, anajang, anatta. Continue the practice. It will be like a pot of water, which has filled to the brim, is now having water removed. When the knowing arises, sati will be reduced, not full like the previous stage. In the practice our awareness is full, but when the knowing arises it will attach to the knowing, it will attach to the object. When the object arises we have confidence, and it enters into our memory in the brain and is never forgotten then on. I have known this since I was 46, but I haven't forgotten even a little. I know Rupnam in the morning and know the changing of the mind in the evening. I really know this, and I have the confidence to guarantee that it is the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha taught this thing. Making merit, giving charity, keeping precept, that is good in one way, but learning from the texts, we do not really know how to practice developing sati, how to deal with the mind. A person who doesn't know teaches a person who doesn't know. The result is not knowing. One that knows teaches, the result is knowing, because everybody has it, each can become the real pra, a noble individual. Woman, man, child, if they know it they become the real pra, a noble individual. Therefore the pra is a kind of blessing, because she or he teaches people to know. Blessing means noble. The noble knowledge is called giving Dhamma as charity, or giving knowledge as charity. This is the path of the real noble individual. When we develop sati, and know the movements more and more, jnana panya will occur. When jnana, insight knowledge, arises you will really know, you don't have to remember from the texts. You will know kilesa, tanha, upadana, kama, stickiness, heaviness, attachment, action. Seeing clearly, seeing really, kilesa, tanha, upadana, kama, will reduce or fade away. When we know this point, we don't have to believe anybody. The one that sees it owns it. Suppose that the Buddha comes and tells you that this practice is not correct, you will also not believe him, because it is real. When jnana panya arises, you have real confidence. When you know this point, piti will arise again. When I knew this point during my practice, I went to sleep. After getting up, I started walking back and forth. The cause is walking back and forth, the effect is that the knowing arises again. I walk back and forth and have the knowing. At that time, there is a centipede running across my path. The centipede is cause, the effect is that I see the centipede. I light a candle and try to find the centipede. When I cannot find it, I bring the candle back, and then begin to walk back and forth again. Walking back and forth is cause, the effect is knowing sila, sila kunda, samadhi kunda, panya kunda, all that belongs to normality, setting up the mind, knowing. The knowing arises that kunda means, vessel, container, to contain, to fight it. You can fight everything. It is like when the container is good and you go to get water, you can have that water to drink. But if the container is broken, when you go to get the water, you cannot get it. In the texts they call this, ati sila sikha, ati jitta sikha, and ati panya sikha, the training in the higher morality, higher mind, and higher wisdom. We can compare them, the texts and the experience. This is called sila has arisen, therefore sila is the tool to get rid of the crude kilesa. Sila is already there in us. So this kind of sila doesn't concern keeping precepts, but only concerns the development of sati. When we practice this kind of developing sati, its result will happen in this way. When we know this point, we will understand that sila can really get rid of the crude kilesa. When the crude kilesa is removed, sila will occur. It is like when we plant fruit trees, banana, coconut, or palm, the shoots are already there, but to see them we have to wait until they come up. When we see them, that is the result. Please work diligently and devotedly at developing sati. Whatever people may say, we don't have to pay attention to it. Even though you make merit and give a lot of charity, you will never know this experience. Even though you study a lot, you'll also never know. They do not concern this thing. This can really untie dukkha. When we can cure dukkha, wherever we are comfortable. If we are parents, teachers, children, police, soldiers, monks, novices, or whoever, we will be comfortable, because dosa, moha, lopa disappears, the attachment disappears. But we have to go over this object again and again, so as not to forget. But when you really see it you will never forget it. I have seen it, and I have never forgotten it. Now we come to know samatha, concentration calmness, or doing calmness. There are two kinds of calmness. Samatha calmness is the calmness of not knowing. So samatha meditation is only a device to keep the mind calm. Vipassana, liberating insight, means to see clearly, to know really. It is also calmness, but a different kind of calmness. Developing sati, the calmness will arise by itself because it is already there. The arising calmness is the unattachment, not having dosa, moha, lopa. When people say anything to us, sati will come immediately. It is like having only one chair but there are two people who are running to sit on it. When sati arises, sati will sit there, dosa, moha, lopa cannot come, because sati, samadhi, panya is already there. It is full. The fullness is already there. The voidness is also already there. It is like an empty glass, which has air inside it but we cannot see the air. When we pour water into it, water will substitute for the air, all of the air. The matter of sati is the same thing. I can really assure you. Suppose there is somebody who says bad things to us. Sati will come, and we can see it clearly. Parents teach us that if there is somebody cursing us or saying bad things to us, we should be patient and not get angry. But we cannot stay still because we don't see it. When there is nobody to say bad things to us, we are already comfortable, because the comfortable is already there. It depends on what we suppose to be the owner of each body to practice and make it occur. When we practice, the clear knowing and the real seeing will occur. I can assure everybody. If somebody does not develop sati and does not make this thing occur, that person doesn't have it, but it is already there. So we should respect each other. After knowing sila, we will know gama, sensuality. Gama means those things that make calmness. Gama is attachment. This is called gama aramana, the object of sensual enjoyment. It is called gamazava, under the control of gama, bhavazava, under the control of bhava, being, or dukkha. This is bhava and jati, birth. Avijjasava, avijjaya is not knowing. Now we come to know gama, which is deities, rich people, people with authority. They attach to reputation, money, honor, these people who have gama, but I do not blame anybody, I just teach directly. You can bring it into practice, or you might not bring it into practice, it depends on you. When we know gama, we see that gama is dukkha, gamazava is dukkha, bhavazava is dukkha, avijjasava is dukkha, because of not knowing. We also know samatha meditation. People may talk in any manner, we really know the matter of calmness. We know all the stages of it, because it is already in us. We right the overturned bowl, we open up what is covered over, that is to teach the method of practice, the method of arm movements, the method of turning the hand. This is one form of the most intensive practice. I have not taught this according to the texts. It may or may not contradict the texts, but I will talk in this way, because doing this way then you know this way. If you study from the texts, when asked about the truth, you don't know. Many of my teachers didn't know. The arm movement is cause, its result is punya arising. Cause and effect go together. After knowing this, we know about punya and papa. For any bad bodily action, we know how it is papa, kama, harmful, benighted action, and, if there is really a hell, into which level we shall fall. For any bad verbal action, we know how it is papa, kama, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For any bad mental action, we know how it is papa, kama, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For any bad bodily, verbal, and mental actions together, we know how they are papa, kama, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For any good bodily action, we know how it is, punya kama, beneficial wise action, and if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For any good verbal action, we know how it is punya, kama, and if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For any good mental action, we know how it is vedana, and if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For any good bodily, verbal, and mental actions together, we know how they are punya, kama, and if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. The shaking of the knowing element is already there in everybody. The developing of sati can apply to everybody. If you don't believe it, just try it. I can guarantee that it will not take longer than 3 years and you will really know. It is like the fat, fertile grain that we plant in the field. If we practice incorrectly, it is like the empty husk. If you dig the ground, but not in the right place, then you cannot get water. If you dig into the ground in the right place, then you can really get the water. This kind of practice, if you do it correctly, you will really get the result. If you do it incorrectly, you will not get the fruit. When the occurrence happens, we know about 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and wind, they come together. When we know this, the occurrence arises. We know the end of dukkha. The end of dukkha is here, it will demolish all and everything. On this thing I do not believe anybody. When we come to the end we will have jnana. Sila is the tool to get rid of crude kilesa. When the crude kilesa comes to an end, sila occurs. Samadhi is the tool to get rid of the median kilesa. When we know the median kilesa, then we know samadhi. Panya is the tool to get rid of the subtle kilesa. When the subtle kilesa is discarded, Panya then arises. That arising Panya is called Jnana Panya. Because it is inside us, we know it. If it is not there inside us, then we don't know it. I can assure you that everyone without exception can know it. Women, men, believers of any religion. When I was practicing this method, I was not a monk. Sometimes I wore shorts, sometimes I wore trousers. After knowing this Dhamma, I taught brothers, parents, aunts, and uncles for 3 years. They knew, but they knew little, but still they knew the real pra, knew the supposed pra, knew Samyati Panyati, Paramatha Panyati, Atha Panyati, and Ariya Panyati. The mind changes from commoner to noble individual. They say that Nibbana is, Tadunga Pahana, abandoning by substitution of opposites, Vikkumbana Pahana, abandoning by suppression, Samacheda Pahana, abandoning by destruction. Tadunga Pahana is, to come to know oneself thoroughly. There are 4 levels of knowledge. First, we know until the end of dukkha, but we know only a short time, it doesn't last long. Second, we know longer, like the light of a bigger lamp. Third, we know even longer, like the light of even bigger lamp. And fourth, when we know the end of dukkha, but after we know it is there all the time. It is like the full flame of the lamp, or the light of the sun, the very brightest light. There are 4 kinds of jnana. We have to really know it. This is learning and practice. Learning means moving the arms. Practice means turning the hand up and down. After learning and practicing this method, the fruit will come, and we will have no doubt, because we know all. We also know the end of dukkha. Patijassamuppada, dependent co-arising, is just words. If we want it in our practice, we have to come to the cause, that is to practice movement, until Panya arises. When Panya arises, when we talk about Patijassamuppada, we know it immediately. So now we come to the conclusion. We practice developing sati, and we come to see thought, we come to see the mind. We do the practice like a boxer, once in the ring, the boxer must box. We do it often, step by step. We do it like a ball in a field. When people do not stop kicking the ball must continue to roll. When they stop kicking it, the ball comes to rest by itself, it doesn't have to fight nor to escape. We come out of thought, come out of the cave, and we live in the brightness. We see our life mind at all times. When the mind moves, we know it, Sathipanya, awareness knowing, is there immediately, like a barrier against all harm. And though the world of others be turbulent and heated, with us the whole world is at peace. Be that way. To be experienced by the knowing each one for oneself. How to practice developing sati. The Buddha teaches us to know our duty. The duty of humanity is to practice Dhamma. The duty of humans is to teach humans to be human. So we should look to ourselves first, we should consider ourselves first, we should teach ourselves first. If we waste our life, we cannot buy it again. If we let our life suffer, we waste it. The Buddha teaches us nothing else than to extinguish dukkha, suffering, but when we don't know, we seek its cessation outside ourselves. But dukkha of that kind doesn't exist. The teachings of the world teachers are like all the leaves in the forest, but those leaves that can be used as medicine are few. Don't take them all, together with their roots and trunks. When it comes to the practice of Gamatana, meditation, or Vipassana, insight, we should take only that which can prevent dukkha from arising, can extinguish dukkha at its source, can destroy moha, delusion. So we take only the heart. The heart of the teaching I am talking about is to have sati, awareness, to have panya, knowing, to see thought. Whenever thought arises, see it, know it, understand it. Know it in whatever manner it comes, and know how to prevent it from deluding us. Wherever we are, that is where we must practice. Nobody else can do it for us. Wherever we go, we are the one that goes. Wherever we stay, we are the one that stays. Sit, eat, drink, sleep, we alone do it. If we are a person who keeps precepts or gives charity, we can practice. And if we are somebody who never does these things, we can also practice. To help others is good, but it is good only in a worldly way. To practice developing sati, samadhi, panya, awareness, steadiness of mind, knowing, however, is good in every way. So before you teach others, you should train yourself, until you clearly and really see, know, and understand. When you really see, really know, and really are, then you can teach others comfortably. So this practice, we have to learn it ourselves, we have to teach ourselves, we have to see ourselves, we have to know ourselves, we have to understand ourselves, we have to do ourselves. So you needn't be interested in others, just do this movement practice a lot, do it as nothing special, do it without hurry, without doubt, without speculation, do it without expectation of result. Be simple, and just move, one movement at a time, and know. When you don't know, let it pass, when you know, let it pass. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know, so it goes, but know. When the body moves, know it. When the mind moves, know it. This practice is a 24 hours a day practice, so relax and just be natural, just be normal. Set up the mind to really practice, and practice comfortably. The method of developing sati in daily life. When we get on a bus or boat, and are seated properly, we turn the palm up, we turn the palm down, we move the hand, or stretch the hand, or run the thumb over the fingertips, and blinking eyes, breathing, swallowing saliva, and so on, be aware of these movements. This is the way to have awareness returning to ourself. When thought arises, be aware of it, and detach it. The method of developing sati when we are at home. We can sit with both legs gathered back to one side, or cross-legged, or in a chair, or we can sit with legs outstretched. We can stand or lie down doing the rhythmic practice too. When we walk Jangama, meditating while walking back and forth, a length of 8 to 12 paces will do, we must not move the arms, fold the arms across the chest, or clasp the hand behind the back. The method of practice in a sitting position is shown in the stylized illustrations that follow. First, rest the hands palms down on the thighs. Second, with awareness, turn the right hand onto its edge, then stop. Third, with awareness, raise the hand, then stop. Fourth, with awareness, lower the hand to rest on the abdomen, then stop. Fifth, with awareness, turn the left hand onto its edge, then stop. Sixth, with awareness, raise the hand, then stop. Seventh, with awareness, lower the hand to rest on the abdomen, then stop. Eighth, with awareness, move the right hand up to rest on the chest, then stop. Ninth, with awareness, move the hand out, then stop. 10th, with awareness, lower the hand to the thigh, then stop. 11th, with awareness, turn the hand down, then stop. 12th, with awareness, move the left hand up to rest on the chest, then stop. 13th, with awareness, move the hand out, then stop. 14th, with awareness, lower the hand to the thigh, then stop. 15th, with awareness, turn the hand down, then stop. And repeat this cycle of movements again and again. good in the beginning, excellent in the middle, and miraculous in the end. The object of the practice of developing sati through the method of movement. Stage 1. Suppositional object. We must know Rup Nam, body-mind, must know Rup acting, Nam acting, must know Rup disease, Nam disease. There are two kinds of Rup disease, Nam disease. With diseases of the body, like headache, stomachache, and wounds, we have to go and see the doctor at the hospital. The disease of the mind is dosa, moha, lopa, anger, delusion, greed. For a cure we must depend upon this method of developing sati, awareness. Then we must know dukkhang, anajang, anatta, suffering, impermanence, not self, unbearable, unstable, uncontrollable. Then we must know samyati, supposition. Whatever samyati is in the world, know it to the end. Then we must know sasana, religion, we must know Buddha sasana, Buddhism. Sasana is everyone without exception. Sasana means the teaching of one that knows. Know Buddha sasana. Buddha means one that knows, one that is awake, one that is blessed with Dhamma, which is sati, samadhi, panya, awareness, setting up the mind, knowing. So we develop panya. Then we must know papa, sin, must know punya, merit. Papa is dark, stupid, not knowing how it is. Punya is clever, knowing everything. Whoever doesn't know is called somebody who still doesn't have punya. End of stage 1. There will arise an obstacle at this point, because we attach to the knowledge of Vipassana or Kilesa. Vipassana or Kilesa, defilement of insight, is when we know outside ourself endlessly. We must withdraw. We must not enter thought. Stage 2, touchable object. Use sati to see thought. When thought arises, know it, see it, understand it, and touch it. As soon as thought arises, cut it away immediately. Do it like a cat pouncing on a rat. Or like a boxer that climbing into the ring, must box immediately. The boxer needn't pay respect to the teacher. Lose or win, the boxer must box. We must not wait for anyone. Or like digging a well. When we find water, it is our duty to scoop out the mud, scoop out the mire, scoop out the water until it is finished. Scoop out the old water to the end. Now new water from inside will come out. We must stir at the edge of the well, clean the edge of the well, clean out the mud, and clean out the mire. Do it often. The water will become clean by itself. When the water is clean, anything that falls into the well we will know, see, and understand immediately. The cutting out of thought is the same. The quicker we cut, the better it is. Then let us see Vatu, thingness, see Paramutha, mind touchable, see Agara, change in Jess. Vatu means things that exist in the world, everything in humans and the mind of humans and creatures. Paramutha means things that really exist, we are seeing, having, being it, right now in front of us, touchable with the mind. Agara means change in Jess. Suppose we have a full can of dye, originally of 100% quality. If we dye cloth, it will adhere to the material 100%. When we know, we see, we can touch with the mind, the same full can of dye but the quality declines. Take it to dye cloth, it will no longer adhere to the material. This we must really see, must really know. Then see dosa, moha, lopa. Then let us see, vedana, sunya, sankhara, vijnana, feeling, percept, conceiving, knowingness, see them, know them, and touch them. Really understand this. We needn't doubt. Now there will arise a little bhiti, rapture, but bhiti is an obstacle in the higher practice of Dhamma. We must not be interested in that bhiti, we must come to see thought. This is the beginning of the touchable object, of this method of developing sati, of one that has panya. Continue to see thought. There will occur knowledge, or jnana panya, the knowledge of full direct awareness knowing. See, know, and understand kilesa, tanha, upadana, kama, defilement/stickiness, craving/heaviness, attachment, action. Therefore attachment will lose its taste, loosen its grip and fade, just as poor quality dye cannot adhere to material. There will again arise pt. We must not be interested in that pt. Uproot satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Continue to see thought, to see the mind that is thinking. There will occur a kind of jnana, to see, to know, and to understand sila, normality, sila kunda, samadhi kunda, panya kunda, the gathering together, containing of all normality, setting up the mind, knowing, or, ati sila sikha. Ati jitta sikha, and ati panya sikha, the training in the higher ethics, higher mind, higher knowing. Kunda means to contain or to fight. Sikha means to steamroller into powder or to pulverize to extinction. So sila is the tool to get rid of crude kilesa. Crude kilesa is dosa, moha, lopa, kilesa, tanha, upadana, kama. When these lose their taste, fade, and loosen, then sila occurs. Samadhi is the tool to get rid of median kilesa. Median kilesa is calmness, which is to see, to know, and to understand gamazava, upavasava, avijasava, under the control of sensuality, being, not knowing, because this kilesa is median kilesa, which makes the mind calm. This is one of the objects of this method of developing sati. When we know and see it this way, we will come to know dana, generosity, giving, keeping precepts, and doing gamatana, meditation, from every angle and every corner. There will arise jnana panya in the mind. For a bad bodily action, know how it is papa, kama, harmful, benighted action, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For a bad verbal action, know how it is papa, kama, and if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For a bad mental action, know how it is papa, kama, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For bad bodily, bad verbal, and bad mental actions together, know how they are papa, kama, and, if there really is a hell, into which level we shall fall. For a good bodily action, know how it is punya, kama, beneficial, wise action, and, if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For a good verbal action, know how it is punya, kama, and, if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For a good mental action, know how it is punya, kama, and, if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. For good bodily, good verbal, and good mental actions together, know how they are punya, kama, and, if there really is a heaven or nibbana, to which level we shall go. End of the object of this method of developing sati. It will be the greatest, most wonderful unfolding, which is in the mind of everyone without exception. If we still do not know it now, when the breathing is nearly finished we most certainly must know. One that is developing sati, developing panya, has jnana and knows. But somebody who doesn't develop sati doesn't develop panya, when the breathing is nearly finished it will be the same, but they will not know, because they have no jnana. To clearly know and really see, not just to memorize or recognize, to know with jnana panya of the real developing of sati, is to be able to assure oneself. It is said that at the end jnana will arise. Be careful about abnormalities that may occur. Be aware of yourself. Don't attach to happiness or to anything that arises. Don't take happiness, don't take suffering, but just return to reviewing the object often, from Rupnam until the end of the object, level by level, and know that the object has steps and stages. Certainly, If you develop sati correctly, the longest time for the practice will be no more than 3 years, the median time 1 year, and the quickest time 1 day to 90 days. We do not have to talk about the fruit of this practice. There is really no dukkha. But that is not obtained simply by wishing, and this too is dukkha. There are many different methods of gamatana. I have practiced many methods, but those methods did not lead to Hapanyat. Now, the method that we are practicing is the method that directly leads to Hapanyat. Anyone can practice it, if they know the correct method. When Hapanyat arises, you will know, see, and understand by yourself. So the method of turning the hand up and down is the method to build up sati, to develop Hapanyat. When it has been practiced thoroughly, it will be abundant and spontaneous. Anyone without exception can practice it, whether they are a child or adult, whatever work they do, whatever religions they profess or beliefs they hold, they can practice. Everyone has body-mind. Body is the matter that we can see with the eyes. We can call it rup. But the mind we cannot see with the eyes, we cannot touch with the hands. It can be called nam. These two things are the same. When we build up sati, develop sati, Hapanya will arise and know by itself. Just have the thing that is already there grow up. The thing that is not real, we don't have to do it. When we know Rup Nam, we will know everything, and we can really untie dukkha. For example, we will not attach to samyati. After knowing that, we practice more awareness, doing the arm movement as I advised you. Now we do it faster. Thought is the quickest thing, it is quicker than electricity. When sati Hapanya has increased, it will know, see, and understand dosa, moha, lopa. When we know it, dukkha in the mind will decrease. Most people misunderstand, and think that dosa, lopa, and moha are normal. But one that knows says that dosa, moha, lopa is dukkha, ugly, dirty, so he or she doesn't let that thing come close. This is called knowing one's own life mind, which is clean, illuminated and calm. When we know this point, it has great potential, like a small stream descending to become a big river. So the method of practice is to have more and more awareness, knowing the postures of the body, and those minor movements like blinking, looking to the left and right, inhaling and exhaling. All these movements can be seen with the eyes. But we cannot see thought with the eyes. We can only know it and see it with samadhi, sati, hapanyat. The samadhi I am talking about is not sitting with eyes closed. Samadhi means setting up the mind to be aware of ourself. When we have awareness of ourself continuously, that is called samadhi, or it can be called sati. When the mind thinks, we will know thought immediately, and thought will become shorter and shorter. It is like plus and minus, increase and decrease. If we talk, there is much to say, but I would like all of you to practice the movement, to practice by yourself through the method of movement. The fruit will come by itself.
Normality. Luangpor Teean, 1911–1988, was one of the most remarkable teachers of Buddhist practice to appear in Asia in modern times. His teaching issued very directly from his own experience, intensely personal and original. Not a scholar nor academic, but a simple man who spoke very frankly about his experiences. His method of meditation employs simple hand and arm movements as a way to increase awareness. If you are searching for ways to calm a busy mind, Luangpor Teean's gentle teaching will guide the way. Luangpor Teean Jita Subho. Forward. The way Luangpor Teean teaches differs somewhat from other teachings because he speaks directly from his experiences. Luangpor Teean couldn't read or write, nor speak Central Thai, only the Lao dialect, until 12 or 13 years before he died. Because of this lack of academic knowledge, his words don't always correspond to the accepted interpretations of those words. One who is attached to conservative explanations will find this unacceptable, but someone with an open mind, concerned about what is behind the words, can step over rigid views about what things mean. For example, the four chanas are explained in terms of the four stages of enlightenment, and seeing the Tathagata, as seeing oneself. Some of these points could be seen as ready-wit, hapali, hapatipana, and at the same time, their meaning recognized. Other things need a mature attitude of not fussing about definitions, but sincerely opening up to what Luangpor is trying to convey. It is unlikely that it will escape the reader's attention that Luangpor Teean was a simple man, who spoke very frankly about his experiences, and the reason he did so seems rather obvious. With confidence one is liable to open up the mind more and come closer to what Luangpor is pointing to. To have an open mind is exactly what awareness is about, to receive anything that appears or occurs in the present, whether it is a sensation due to movements, breathing, the eyes blinking, the knee resting on the floor, a breeze touching the skin, or even sound and visual phenomena. We hear and see them in the present, don't we? As long as the mind doesn't proliferate, all of this can be used as more objects of awareness. They are not obstacles. That's a different attitude than training in concentration, where the mind is narrowed down to one point. But samadhi is the establishing of the mind, and we can establish the mind in awareness every second of the day because movements, as well as this practice, are natural. The translator. Walking the path. Taking a shortcut. Today the monks, novices, and lay people are meeting here in order to study the method to develop meditation. We're not interested in anything else because we've done it already. For example, making merit, being generous, upholding precepts, and doing tranquility, meditation. As for insight meditation, we've heard about it, but we don't yet understand, or we've only practiced it a little bit. Therefore, before we start practicing insight meditation, we have to rely on listening and reading from scriptures before we understand what tranquility meditation is and what insight meditation is. Developing awareness is the path that the Buddha teaches. Things outside of Buddhism. Making merit, being generous, keeping precepts, and doing tranquility meditation are a pair with the world. Whether there is a Buddha or there is no Buddha, these things exist anyway. When Prince Siddhartha was born, Brahmins were assiduously looked after, which is making merit and offerings. As for tranquility meditation, it's a matter of psychic powers, a matter of ambition. We've probably heard about becoming invisible, flying through the air, diving into the earth, reading other people's minds, multiplying oneself, reciting magical verses to obstruct vision, and hearing by entering absorption. This is not insight. According to the Buddha's biography, when Prince Siddhartha ordained, he studied with the hermit Alara, and mastered 7 absorptions, 4 form absorptions and 3 formless absorptions. But suffering still existed. That is to say, there was still greed, hatred, and delusion. He was not satisfied with this and so studied with the last teacher, the hermit Uttagga, until he mastered the 8 absorptions, 4 form absorptions and 4 formless absorptions. The hermit said, "That's as much as I know." But the prince was still not satisfied because there was still greed, hatred, and delusion. He wasn't liberated from suffering yet. This shows that tranquility is not able to put an end to suffering. After this, the prince tormented himself, together with the 5 ascetics who were following him. He fasted until his body was so thin that it was just skin over his bones, and he held his breath. But even after doing all this, greed, hatred, delusion, satisfaction and dissatisfaction still persisted. There were still defilements. Things inside Buddhism. So the prince gave up those methods and started to eat fruit. Because of this, the 5 disciples avoided and eventually left him, so he practiced by himself. Having eaten some rice offered by Miss Suchata, his body recovered strength. He reflected on the various methods that he had been practicing but which were not capable of shaking off the defilements. He still had troubles and suffering. So the prince turned around and looked at his mind and was, at last, successful. He attained Anuttara Samma Sambodhiyana and became the fully enlightened Buddha. he was able to conquer all the defilements and to extinguish suffering, leaving only coolness. His body was back to normal and his mind was free of suffering at last. He lived with and enjoyed the happiness of awareness and wisdom. Having attained this, the Buddha shrank back from teaching, reflecting that this practice was profound, and it would be hard to understand. So it can be taken that mind development is something difficult to do, and that this is what Buddhist teaching is about. As for making merit, being generous, keeping precepts, and doing tranquility meditation, it is not the teaching of the Buddha, but a teaching of teachers at large. Teachings outside of Buddhism. There were many sects in India. Some sects taught to lie roasting on fire so that defilements would dry up, some taught to lie on thorns to endure through the pain and torment that resulted from that, in order to get rid of defilements. Some sects ought to give up everything including clothes, a practice known as naked asceticism, so as to induce the feeling that there is no self, no shame. It was believed that defilements would be dissolved that way. Altogether, there were many sects, but none of them could eliminate the defilements. This matter can easily be proven, as it is said that lying roasting on fire and drinking hot water will result in the heat burning off the defilements. In the old days, in the villages, when a woman gave birth, she would be laid down roasting above a fire and given hot water to drink. But the woman would still have defilements, showing that this sect did not achieve results. As for the sect that would have its followers give up everything and go naked, just look at a baby not wearing clothes. It still has moods and feelings. As soon as someone talks nicely, it laughs. And when someone scolds, it cries, whether naked or clothed. This shows that defilements are not in the body, they are in the mind. Therefore, to practice Dhamma we have to practice at the mind. I will tell you so you'll understand, because I have been doing this, repeating a mantra such as Bhud, though, Samat Arahant, rising falling, counting, 1, 2, 3. With these methods, one has to sit with the eyes closed and repeat a word while watching the breath, for example, saying Bhud, with the in-breath, and though, with the out-breath. I've done quite a lot of this, but there was still satisfaction and dissatisfaction, greed, hatred, and delusion didn't diminish. This kind of practice is called tranquility meditation. Tranquility meditation is not more than a means to make the mind peaceful, but it is peace under the influence of delusion. It's just like putting a rock on top of grass. As long as the rock is on top of the grass can't grow, but when the rock is removed, the grass grows just as before, or maybe even more vigorously than before. It is true that there is no lopa, dosa, and moha when we're sitting alone, with the eyes closed, but as soon as we go back into society, like and dislike are born again. This is how it is. Going off to stay in a cave in a forest or the mountains cannot extinguish suffering, just because of going to stay there. At first, I did it like that also. The teachings inside Buddhism. The word Vipassana translates as realizing and truly seeing. Seeing what? Seeing impermanence, instability, and non-selfhood. When having insight, one views things differently than before. It is a transcendency. When we don't yet see clearly nor truly know, then acting, speaking, and thinking are as before. It is not yet Vipassana. But when we feel differently than before, that is, greed, hatred and delusion decrease, it can be called Vipassana. A handful of leaves, awareness. To practice insight meditation, the Buddha teaches us to develop 4 foundations of awareness, namely 1. Gayanupassana, that is, to meditate on the body, in the body, and see according to actuality, that this body is only just a body, it's not a being, an individual, nor a self. It is neither me nor it. 2. Vedananupassana, to meditate on the feelings, and see according to actuality, that these feelings are only just feelings, they are not a being, an individual, nor a self. They are neither me nor them. 3. Jittanupassana, to meditate on the mind, in the mind, and see according to actuality, that this mind is only just mind, it is not a being, an individual, nor a self. It is neither me nor it. 4. Dhammanupassana Satipatthana, to meditate on the mental objects, in the mental objects, and see according to actuality, that these mental objects are only just mental objects. They are not a being, an individual, nor a self. They are neither me nor them. The teachings of the Buddha are many, I'm not able to describe all of it. We probably heard that at one time our Buddha was walking with a number of monks in the forest. Seeing fallen leaves scattered around, the Buddha picked up a handful of leaves and asked those bhikkhus, monks, which is more, the leaves in my hand or all the leaves in the forest? The bhikkhus answered, the leaves in the forest are more than those in your hand, so much so that they cannot be compared. The Buddha then taught that the knowledge and understanding that the Buddha had studied was comparable to the leaves in the forest, and the knowledge that he taught us was comparable to a handful of leaves. The leaves in the forest stand for making merit, generosity, keeping precepts, and developing tranquility meditation, and the handful of leaves for insight meditation. However, to do Vipassana we have to study through listening and reading at first, before we start practicing. Otherwise we'll waste a lot of time gathering all the leaves in the forest. The practice of Vipassana that the Buddha teaches, though developing the 4 Satipatthana, means learning to be aware. The Buddha said that there are 2 things that are of great assistance, namely, first, sati, to recollect or not forget that there is the body, that there are movements, that there are feelings, that there is mind or that there are mental objects. Before doing or thinking anything, know it with awareness. And second, sampajanya, to realize, the moment we're thinking something, to realize it fully. Sati sampajanya, when using ordinary language, just means to wake up, to awaken, to feel oneself all the time. Developing awareness gives rise to wisdom. Talking from experience, it is not necessary to sit with the eyes closed in order to develop awareness. I've done the method of sitting with closed eyes, and wisdom didn't arise. But doing the new method, my method, wisdom did arise, and I got the feeling that is in accordance with the texts. Some people may think that my method is new because they've never heard it before, but actually it is as old as the Buddhist teachings. A. Arouse the body to always feel and be awake. The development of awareness that I'm talking about and have been doing is done as follows. We can either sit down on the floor or on a chair, and it can even be done in the lying or standing position. Catch with your awareness the movements of the hands, turn the hand up, turn the hand down, raise the hand, lower the hand. Be aware of each posture. Do this often. This is the coarse way of developing awareness. Simply speaking, walking, or lying down, or whatever you may be doing, know it. Everyone can do this method, no matter what religion one believed in. It can be practiced by all. People of all nationalities can do it because everyone has a body and mind. All religions teach the same thing, to abandon what is bad and to do what is good. B. Arouse the mind to always feel and be awake. Having developed awareness until one is skilled at it, catch the feelings in the mind with awareness, following whatever comes up, no matter what one is thinking. Know and see it. Keep watching your own thoughts continuously. Regardless of what you're doing, look at your own mind all the time, no matter what it is that you are doing, reading a book, writing, digging, cutting grass or bathing. Keep watch over your own mind all the time. What kinds of feelings are coming up? Satisfaction, dissatisfaction, worry, doubts, etc. These things are all thoughts, objects. Watch over these thoughts and objects. Then we will see the various kinds of thoughts, such as gladness, sadness, desire to get, desire to not get, anger, hate, and so forth. They don't exist all the time. They arise and pass away, they change all the time. We are not glad or sad for 24 hours. C. To know and see according to reality. Change, arising passing away, is what the Buddha showed to be impermanence, instability and non-selfhood. So don't follow moods. The Buddha proclaimed that he was enlightened by working with the mind. We have to look at our minds. Watching the mind is turning on the light by using the switch. When we do this often, awareness will become nimble and quick. Awareness will intercept greed, hatred, and delusion and prevent it from arising. Awareness and concentration are together. As for wisdom, it means knowing and seeing clearly. In Pali, it says Nati Panyasama, meaning there is nothing as bright as wisdom. And Sathi they sung Navaranung, meaning awareness is that which prevents the stream of defilements. There isn't anything that is fast enough to hold back the stream, other than Sathi. It is this awareness and wisdom, that come and contact, know, see, and stop it, not letting us become deluded. This is because Sathi, Samadhi, Panya, is opposite to dosa, moha, lopa. If we don't see, know, and understand, there is full greed, hatred, and delusion. It is comparable to nighttime, when it's dark. As soon as we light a candle there is light and the darkness disappears, because darkness is afraid of light. As soon as the candle goes out, the darkness immediately comes back. Peace as result. That I'm giving some reflections and explaining, this shortcut method of practice is in order for you all to take it, and practice with it, so that you get quick results and don't have to waste time. This method can be used in daily life. There is no need to stop working in order to practice. Some people have practiced a bit already, and some people have only just heard it. Some people who have never heard it might feel displeased. If that's how you feel, then discard that feeling first, the knowledge that you have learned before. Put it down for now and test out what I'm saying, try it out and you will know what the results that arise are like. I dare to guarantee that, this method is at least 80% right according to what the Buddha teaches. Talking according to just my own personal feeling, it is 100% right, because having practiced it, I know that it alleviates greed, hatred, and delusion. When those things diminish, peace arises instead. Full awareness as result. I'd like to give another example. Take a glass. We can see that there is air in the glass. When we pour water into it, the air goes out and the water is in it instead. Then, when we pour the water out, the air goes back in and replaces the water. This compares with our turning up the hand. We know, we have awareness, Sathi comes to replace not knowing, delusion. Not knowing goes out of our minds. Do it often. Catch the feeling often, in all postures. Sathi will increase, and delusion, not knowing will decrease just as the water replaces air in the glass. Maybe some of you have heard about, or have been taught, to make merit, for example by building a ceremonial hall or temple, and you get merit for this or that many eons. And you've probably heard that, 100 years on earth equals on year in heaven. The angels throw one sesame seed in a pit that is 100 leagues deep. When it is full, that's 1 eon. Other than that, you've probably heard that to once put food into a monk's bowl, you get rewarded for 6 eons, sending a container with food to offer to monks, one gets rewarded for 5 eons, to send food for the midday meal, 5 eons. These things are puzzles, but some people don't understand. If you want to understand, you have to practice, to develop awareness, by turning the hand up and down, feeling it. Before, we would do things without Sathi, not feeling anything at all. It's comparable to an abyss or pit that is empty, nothing in it, just like in that puzzle. But when training in awareness, catching the movement in all postures, for example, blinking the eyes, sitting and lying down, we are aware, feeling it, knowing it. When doing this, Sathi increases, just like the sesame seeds that fall in the pit, or abyss that is 100 leagues wide, and 100 leagues deep. The aim of this comparison is that we train a lot in awareness, and that we do it a lot in order to get results, to make Sathi full, so that we are not negligent or deluded. When we have developed the four foundations of awareness, as described earlier, we will have the ability to really contemplate, ponder, and understand the various problems in our minds. Developing awareness in the right way will yield results within 3 years. It says in the scriptures that whoever develops the four Satipatthana in the right way, and as continuous as links in a chain, will receive one of the following two results, at most, within 7 years, medium within months, or as fast as 1 to 15 days to become, 1, an arahant or, 2, an anagama, i.e., one who is nearly fully enlightened, in this very life. As for the way of developing the awareness that I'm talking about, if you really do it, knowledge and understanding will arise, and suffering will diminish, within at most 3 years, medium within 1 year, or as fast as 1 to 90 days. We will know, see, and understand, and our life from then onwards will have happiness and no suffering. To practice like this, we don't have to spend money, we can do it an hour a day, or 5 minutes. Even hearing about it often makes the defilements gradually diminish. Greed, hatred, and delusion are evil, they are suffering. To get angry once is evil and is suffering one time. Evil and darkness are the same. Darkness means not seeing, not knowing, not understanding. Merit and knowledge are the same. When we understand, we are at ease, we don't have suffering and we don't doubt. If the mind is dark, there is suffering and doubt. For example, doubt that we're going to be reborn like this and like that after death. But some people, including myself, who have made merit, been generous, kept precepts and practiced tranquility meditation, still doubt about merit and demerit, about falling into hell or going up to heaven after death. They don't understand at that time. The Buddha teaches that heaven is in the heart, hell is in the mind, and Nibbana also is in the mind. Our grandparents used to tell us this, but we didn't reflect on it, so we didn't understand it. We have to practice and know for ourselves. Studying from scriptures is good, but it cannot solve suffering. Teachers teach that we should let go of greed, hatred, and delusion, but they themselves can't let go of it. Teaching others is easy, but teaching oneself is hard. But this method of mine is not difficult. You don't have to study or learn anything. Being able to read and write or not is of no importance. Everyone can practice, men as well as women, ordained or not ordained. We can all practice. There is only one Dhamma, not many kinds. To say that the Dhamma of a person who keeps 5 precepts is one thing, that the Dhamma of a person who keeps 8 precepts is another thing, the Dhamma of an ordained person is another thing, the Dhamma of a lay person is another thing, the Dhamma of a person who practices insight meditation yet another thing. That is a different matter. That is not what I'm talking about. I say that there is only one Dhamma. Dhamma is to finish lopa, dosa, and moha. Doing this is what virtue and Dhamma are. It says in the scriptures that virtue is the means to eliminate coarse defilements, concentration is the means to eliminate medium defilements, and wisdom is the means to eliminate subtle defilements. But can we really eliminate them? No. Why not? Because we don't do it properly. The word defilement stands for greed, hatred, and delusion, but most of us understand it only as materialistic, that having money, a big house and a smart car is defilement. But in reality, those things are not defilements. They are just things that come from being diligent and knowing how to work, and from knowing how to save and accumulate things. But the defilements that I'm talking about are greed, hatred, delusion, and sorrow. These defilements are not afraid of anyone, not of rich people, not of influential people, not even of monks ordained for a long time, with a title, are they afraid? They enter into everyone's mind. On speaking in another way, we could say that the defilements slap everyone's face. A wealthy person, on being told off a bit, is displeased. This shows that the defilements slap him or her in the face. Or when someone praises him or her, satisfaction arises. This is the defilements slapping his or her face. These defilements are not afraid of anyone at all. They are only afraid of those who are disciples of the Buddha. They are afraid of those who develop the four foundations of awareness in the right way. They are ashamed, they don't dare to come close, because that person has the eye to see the Dhamma, the wisdom to see clearly. Of the lay people who have come here today, some people are still young, only 20 to 30 years old. If you develop awareness in the right way, within 2 or 3 years you will go beyond suffering, and during the remaining part of your life, you will just have happiness. Even older people 50 or 60 years old, are the same. Until you die your life will only have happiness. And when you die without suffering. If you still have another 9 or 10 years to live, it will be 9 or 10 years without suffering, with only happiness and coolness of mind. This is the heartwood, the essence of Buddhism. The word Buddha means the one who knows, the awakened one who is joyful with Dhamma. I have shared some of my reflections and understanding. It is a shortcut to practicing Vipassana. It is instantaneous. Having listened, please practice with every breath, no matter where you are, whatever work you are engaged in. You can practice while washing clothes, doing the dishes, sweeping up, or working in the field. Vipassana is wisdom, it is life, it is virtue, it is the Dhamma, it is everything. It is the real life, it is the real Dhamma. May you understand it like this. Summary of the shortcut. I'll give you a few small reflections. 1. To be diligent in developing awareness in all postures, turn the hand up, turn the hand down, raise the hand, lower the hand, walk back and forth, lean to the right and the left, blink the eyes, open the mouth, swallow saliva, breath in and out, fully feeling yourself doing it. This is called having sati. It is equal to throwing sesame seeds into the abyss. When awareness is complete, wisdom arises to really know and see the following matters: rupa, nama, rupa doing, nama doing, rupa disease, nama disease, knowing instability, impermanence and non-selfhood, knowing convention, knowing religion, knowing Buddhism, knowing evil, knowing merit. Really knowing. These are objects to know with real awareness and wisdom. 2. Next, to work with the mind, look at the mind with awareness. Whatever the mind thinks, immediately know it and conquer it. When we immediately know and conquer thought, this is called working with the mind. 3. Do it until you are nimble and swift, until greed, hatred and delusion stop arising. It is the calming and extinguishing of suffering in the mind. This type of suffering we can't chase away as we would chase off a pig, a dog, a duck, or a chicken. We must depend on the development of awareness, and see our minds in order to deal with these types of defilements. If we don't see our minds, we will be empty, similar to a pit or abyss that is never full. When we have awareness, it means it is full, it is no longer a pit or an abyss, and lopa, dosa, and moha don't have a place to enter, because awareness is full. Whatever work we do it with sathipanyat. There is no delusion, only rightness. These types of defilements are ugly and worthy of getting fed up with. Whoever is a disciple of the Buddha with an eye to see the Dhamma, will not have them lying around in his or her mind. They are afraid. Suppose we have defilements at a level of 100%. They slap our face 100%. When we see and understand them, they will gradually diminish. Then, when we try to become familiar with looking at our minds, the defilements will diminish increasingly, step by step. When it reaches 100%, we're rid of suffering. What is left is 100% happiness. Therefore, may you all try to practice and reach the real peace and happiness. The path of peace. May you all listen well, this time, so that sathipanya springs up. Knowing suffering. Something we have in common is that we don't want suffering, we hate it. Then how does suffering arise? Suffering arises because we don't know. Suffering doesn't exist within us, and it doesn't arise all the time. What really exists for sure is normality. By nature the mind of each person is in a state of normality. As we're working, if we do it with delusion, it is called suffering. Most people have suffering while working because they don't see suffering. People who go and see movies and shows do so because suffering leads them. This is due to our not watching minds. The moment we want to go and watch a movie, a thought flashes up that we want to watch a movie. We're not thinking it all day long. When the thought comes up, we don't see the thought. We only just know the thought, and we act, following the thought. This is called suffering. People who smoke are the same. Sometimes they don't even think to smoke but simply follow their moods. They take a cigarette to smoke because they think it is happiness, but actually it is suffering that compels them to do it. Suffering stinks. As to this word suffering, the Buddha sometimes calls it suffering, sometimes defilement, sometimes stench. When talking about suffering or defilements, one notes that it has an ugly smell to it, according to Buddhism. Suffering is something dirty and it stinks, nobody wants it. As soon as the body dies, it starts to rot and stink. But we can still wash and clean it. Excrement is something that stinks, and we detest it. Nobody wants to touch or grab hold of it. But even with such stinking things, the Buddha said, they don't stink all that much, they can still be touched and washed. But the stinking things to which the Buddha is referring are really stinky. They are greed, hatred, and delusion, concealed in our minds, ready to bubble up. The Buddha condemns this emphatically. If anyone's mind still has greed, hatred, and delusion, the Buddha says that it stinks more than excrement. As soon as the mind thinks something in a flash, a person who doesn't know, doesn't see, and doesn't understand becomes deluded immediately. This arising is called by the Buddha, a stain. The word stain means delusion. Even though we've never known, seen, or watched our minds, we still say that we see. But in reality it is not seeing, it is only just knowing thought, and then we act according to the thought. When we say to see, it should mean that we see defilements. That is, we see that either there is greed, hatred, or delusion mixed up in thought, or there is not. To see like this, we have to practice Dhamma first. Practicing Dhamma. Vipassana. In practicing Dhamma, even though one may practice various methods for a long time, if one doesn't perceive that point where the mind is manifesting, one still doesn't understand. One still doesn't understand the main principle of practice according to the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha said that he was enlightened because he worked with the mind, practiced with the mind. But most of us just make merit and give offerings in order to chase off suffering. We haven't yet practiced by following the Buddha style. The Buddha once taught that the results of making merit 100 or 1,000 times, are less than is gained by keeping the precepts even once. The results of keeping precepts 100 or 1,000 times, are less than making the mind peaceful through practicing tranquility meditation once, and the results of making the mind peaceful through practicing tranquility meditation 100 or 1,000 times, are less than practicing insight meditation once. What does insight mean? Insight means to clearly and truly see in a way that is different from one's original way of seeing. Different because the original way of seeing is a state that doesn't know, see, and understand clearly. Briefly stated, the mind is muddled up. Doing Vipassana means to be aware. Being aware is very fruitful. The Buddha practiced Dhamma through being aware, and so became enlightened. Peace. Most of us understand that in order to be an arahant, we have to do tranquility meditation and make the mind peaceful. In reality, there are two kinds of peace, namely, peace that is like being inside a cave, and peace that is like being outside a cave. Peace inside a cave means it is just as though we're in a cave or we're in a dark room. When we light a fire, the darkness disappears and light come to take its place, but as soon as the fire goes out, the darkness come back again. Even when we've made a fire and there's light, we're still in the cave and we still can't see the shape of the cave. We only just see certain things inside the cave. Peace inside a cave is therefore called peace under the influence of moha, a not knowing kind of peace, or even a not wanting to know kind of peace. That some people go and sit to make their minds peaceful, understanding that they're developing insight, this is so, but it's a diluted kind of truth. As for peace outside a cave, it's just like being outside a cave, but it's not dark. There's no need to make a fire, and we're able to know and see what the shape of the cave is like. This may be likened to peace that is without delusion, i.e., peace due to the absence of defilements. There is no lopa, dosa, or moha. In order to achieve this kind of peace, we have to realize and truly see first. Seeing truly and clearly is called insight. Insight is to realize and truly see according to reality. Peace outside the cave is therefore called a knowing kind of peace. One is peaceful because one knows. I want to shake up and warn all of you that developing insight has many obstacles. If we don't know, we'll go wrong, but when we see, know, and understand, we can solve the problems. The first obstacle. The first obstacle in developing Vipassana can appear when we make movements with the body, and sati is aware of it. Wisdom arises in the mind that knows reality as it really is. That is, it knows rupa, nama, it knows instability, impermanence and non-selfhood, it knows convention, it knows religion, knows Buddhism, knows evil and knows merit. This is wisdom knowing through Vipassana. But it's only just the outer bark of Vipassana, still not able to deal with suffering. It is just knowing in knowing, it is knowing through thought, knowing the scriptures. It is defilement due to Vipassana. The obstacle is that when this kind of knowledge arises, we get buried in it, a kind of knowledge that is still similar to being inside a cave. Therefore, next we must try and find a method to get out of the cave, to pull ourselves out of that knowledge, gradually, by watching our thoughts. As soon as a thought flashes up, know, see, and understand that it has come up. This is practicing Dhamma a little bit deeper. Ordinarily, a tree has an outer bark. When one removes the outer bark, he reaches the layer with the nourishing sap inside. Removing that layer, one reaches the white wood. Removing that, one comes to the hardwood. Buddhism is the same. Knowing rupanama, evil and merit is also knowledge, but it is outer knowledge, enough to deal with suffering on one level, such as not being foolish by believing in auspicious things and lucky omens, or in ghosts and angels. But when one is in such a state, greed, hatred, and delusion are still there, because one doesn't know the origin or source of it. To solve this problem, to know the origin of the arising of greed, hatred, and delusion, we must watch our minds, like a cat that waits for a chance to grab a mouse. As soon as a thought comes up in the mind, look at it and fix on it so that it is known in time. A thought comes. Whack, cut it off straight away. Another one, whack, cut it off right there. Do this often. Thoughts will thereby decrease and awareness will increase. Just as with the positive and the negative. When there is more of the positive, the negative lessens. We start off never having seen thought, thinking 100 things and never seeing a single thought. But when we are watching like this, we catch it once and cut it off. The remaining thoughts are less than 100 now and will steadily decrease step by step, as long as we keep at it. We keep gazing like this, a thought comes, we cut it off, another one arises, we drop it. When we think 100 thoughts and we know 95 of them, it shows that we have a lot of awareness. Just 5 thoughts left that we can't keep up with. Right here is where we have to put forth effort, watch thought but don't be caught up in the thought. When we know and see all the 100 thoughts, keep up with every thought every time, it is equal to knowing and seeing exactly where greed, hatred, and delusion are born. We have to throw them off so that defilements are unable to arise. This is called to keep abreast by knowing, to know in time. Knowing how to prevent, knowing how to solve. This is where we're able to deal with lopa, dosa, and moha. Defilements can arise because we get deluded right here. We don't know that their origin is right here. This refers even to someone who goes to the monastery to listen to talks, who makes offerings, who keeps precepts and develops both tranquility and insight meditation. If that person has still never seen his or her own thoughts, then that person is still far from the truth taught by the Buddha. Contrariwise, even if a person has never gone to a monastery to listen to the Dhamma, has never made offerings or kept precepts, but is always aware of what his or her mind is thinking, that person equals with knowing. He keeps abreast of thoughts, knows how to prevent, knows how to solve and knows how to conquer every time. That person is close to the truth, the Dhamma taught by the Buddha. Have you ever heard of the Buddha having taught that the Dhamma exists already? But there is nobody with discernment who can dig it up and find it, so it stays undiscovered. Because it is undiscovered, people make merit, give offerings, keep precepts, and do samatha meditation in order to develop good habits. So we believe that it is meritorious and wholesome to accumulate those things for the next life or for the future. This is wrong understanding. The Buddha didn't teach like this. The Buddha taught us to see our own minds. We have heard the story of the monk Wakali, who was attached to the Buddha's body and never looked at his own mind. When he was corrected by the Buddha, he became so upset that he was going to jump from a cliff and die. The Buddha stopped him and taught him that it is difficult to get born as a human being. And it's very rare for a human being to have an opportunity to listen to the Dhamma from a noble person. The Buddha said further that his body was just material. After his death it would rot and stink. That is not the Buddha. The real Buddha can be found within the monk Wakali. It is the Dhamma that is present in all people, that is, cleanliness, brightness and peace, which is the Buddha. The Buddha proclaimed, "Whoever sees the Dhamma, sees me. Whoever doesn't see the Dhamma, doesn't see me, even when taking hold of my robe or my finger." The monk Wakali woke up and started to work with the mind, and he saw his own thinking. Seeing the Dhamma. I would like to remind you once more that the word Dhamma refers to our seeing, our own minds at the moment that we are acting, talking or thinking. This is what is called seeing the Dhamma. I dare to insist that the very life of the Dhamma exists in all people without exception, no matter whether you are a man or a woman, a monk or a novice, no matter what nationality you may have, whatever language you may speak of, whatever clothes you may wear. It's all the same. The Dhamma is the actions of body, speech, and mind. Actions of the body other people can see, actions of speech others can hear, but actions of the mind others are not able to see. You can only see them yourself. For this reason, the monk Wakali felt at ease viewing it like this. Whether he saw the body of the Buddha or not, he would feel at ease because he saw the real Buddha, that is, really seeing according to reality, an ability that exists in everyone. The Buddha once described seeing in this way, with flowers, black, red, white, or whatever color, they are all ready to bloom when touched by sunshine. That I'm giving you these reflections right now is the same. Anyone can apply them in daily life, whether man or woman, whatever clothes he or she may be wearing, whatever religion is upheld. It can be used by everyone in the same way, because we all have a body and mind. When one sees one's own mind at the moment that it thinks, this indicates that one sees one's own mind at the origin or source of thought. The Buddha points to thought, which must be watched with awareness, as one must not get caught up in the thoughts. Whoever sees this, he or she is called by the Buddha a flower that is ready to bloom when the sun shines. The word sunshine refers to the teachings of the Buddha that direct us to practice with the mind. Whatever work you do, control your thoughts with awareness. Some people don't do it yet, because they're not interested. But when we are interested, when we are suffering, we must be ready to do it. There are 84,000 teachings in Buddhism. They are not for reciting and for performing ceremonies. That was not the Buddha's intention. The Buddha's teachings have nothing at all to do with superstition. They are to be practiced only in order to solve the suffering of the mind. Some people might agree that without ceremonies and rituals Buddhism can't extinguish suffering. This fails to understand the meaning in the right way. We've heard that in the time of the Buddha, when he would expound the Dhamma to people, there were many people, who would open the eye to see the Dhamma and enter the stream of Nibbana, from the first stage of enlightenment upwards by the time the discourse was finished. They didn't have to perform rites and rituals other than working with the mind, as the Buddha indicated. Wherever we explain the Dhamma, if we don't make this point, our words are a stain. Why are they a stain? They are a stain because we don't indicate the way that people who are interested in the Dhamma must practice, in order to free oneself from suffering and defilements. And they are a stain because we thereby abandon these effective teachings. Therefore, may you all try to understand this point without fail. If we don't practice according to this important teaching, then we fail to understand the teaching of the Buddha. The second obstacle. The second obstacle in developing insight is that when we begin to understand and see this point, we are able to destroy greed, hatred, and delusion to some extent, but at the same time, joy is lying concealed within it. The Buddha says this is still not right. Joy is darkness, but it is white darkness. Joy is due to our satisfaction and pride that we can do it. White darkness is frightening because it is hard to see. Black darkness is easy to see because it is dark. Being caught up in joy is to see wrong as right, because as soon as we can destroy some defilements, we don't watch at the point where the defilements are destroyed, but we get sucked into the point where joy arises. Therefore joy is an obstacle in attaining higher stages to Nibbana. Being caught up in joy is equal to being caught up in thinking. A thought comes up and we get caught up in the thought, so we don't see the thought. When we get caught up in joy, we don't see joy, and we're just content with joy. Because of this, the Buddha teaches us to pull ourselves out of the thought that we're thinking, to stand outside of it. Then we will see our thoughts. People who still don't know and see their thoughts say just the same, that they know thought. But in reality they don't understand that thoughts come up continuously, and they get caught up in them. Those who have joy or are attached to the peace of tranquility meditation are the same. They are caught up in peacefulness, don't know that peace is delusion, and thus get caught up in peace. It is comparable to someone who doesn't know how to turn on the light. He or she turns the light bulb. No light appears. The person who pulls him or herself out of thought, and knows and sees thoughts, may be compared to someone who knows how to turn on the light. That person turns on the switch and light does appear. So we have to know the origin of thought and come to an understanding with these little thoughts of ours. Then we will have as much ability as an electric light in brightening the interior of the mind, just as one correctly turns on the light with the switch. When we're looking at our minds, there is no greed, hatred, and delusion. But the moment that we're not looking and lose awareness, greed, hatred, and delusion can come back, and we can get caught up in them. It's just like a car driving along the road. At the place where the car passes there is a wind blowing behind it, leaves and dust flap and flutter at the back of the car. Thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion flash up for a moment, and we follow them. How can we still say that we know thought? In reality we don't see thought, but we get caught up in it. The Buddha teaches that whoever doesn't see one's own thoughts is a heedless person. Heedlessness is poison to one's life, it's like being dead. This is what I said, it stinks. The Buddha said that there is nothing that stinks as much as the mind that has greed, hatred, and delusion, the mind that is stained, the dirty mind. Our real mind isn't dirty or stained at all. It's like a light bulb. The filament in the bulb is not dirty, but dust can settle on the outside of the bulb, the inside is still as bright as before. Or we could compare it with the sun. When clouds obscure the light from coming to the earth, it gets dark, but the sun is still as bright as before. Vidchat, avidchat. People who don't see thought and get caught up in thought are called people in the cycle of dependent origination. They are people who don't know. We've probably heard this, avidchat is the condition for formation to arise, formations are the condition for the birth of consciousness, consciousness conditions mentality materiality, mentality materiality conditions the six senses, the six senses condition contact, contact conditions feeling, feeling conditions craving, craving conditions clinging, clinging conditions being, being conditions birth, and birth conditions old age, death, and suffering. It's a cycle. Avijja translates as not knowing. We say that we know, but we don't see our minds. Instead we get caught up in thought. As for the word vidchat, it means knowing, seeing one's own thoughts. A thought comes up, we see it, and it stops. It's like a cat and a mouse. If we don't have a cat at home, the mice are not afraid, but when we have a cat, it will catch the mice as soon as they show their faces. The mice die of shock when they get caught. They can die even though the cat doesn't bite. They have such shock, never been caught by a cat before. This is similar to our fixing on thoughts in our minds. When a thought comes, we know it in time, and it immediately stops, comes to a halt, can't concoct any further. This is called vidchat, knowing, to know in time, knowing how to prevent, knowing how to solve and knowing how to conquer, just like a cat and a mouse. If we don't reflect on the teachings of the Buddha, we don't understand them, and we argue and debate about the teachings, competing with each other. This is not right.
May all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease.